Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 3641, Exposure. Bacchus was after all not an ordinary Glede demon. Therefore, he quickly reacted in just the blink of an eye. However, Tate had caught the soft wolf-owl king, so Bacchus, who was wrapped by the wolf-owl king's body, naturally got dragged along as well. Now, all Tate had to do was to cut open the wolf-owl king and crush Bacchus into pieces. He was sure that he would kill Bacchus, who had always defeated him, this time, and it would be glorious. Unfortunately for him, Bacchus' reaction was faster. Bacchus did his best not to panic in such a critical moment, but he made a wise decision to take back the treacherous being. That treacherous being had a particularly unique form. When it was soft, it was as soft as feathers or even water. But when it was sturdy, it became similar to the most powerful other shore token. When Bacchus thought of it, the wolf-owl king turned into pieces of white gauze and shrank back into his body. Of course, Tate wanted to snatch it, but he could not. He could only stand and watch the white gauze slip away. "You want to run away?" he shouted as he headed straight for Bacchus. In turn, Bacchus' wings unfurled, and he quickly rose into the sky. He sighed in relief, but it was short-lived. Right after he temporarily got away, something suddenly appeared in front of him. "What is that white light?" he said in shock. Still, no matter how powerful that thing was, he was not afraid. After all, he could defeat everything with the help of the wolf-owl king. The wolf-owl king was his most powerful magical weapon, and also his closest comrade in arms. After countless battles, he and the wolf-owl king became one. Just now, the wolf-owl king felt a sharp stab of pain, and Bacchus felt sorry for it. The white light of the red demons was so terrifying that it could directly injure treacherous beings. How did such a thing appear in the Night View Island? For so many years, the members of the Night View Island depended on the treacherous beings to fight their enemies. They were indeed powerful, but so were the many races. Currently, the white light in the hands of the red demons made the resentment level treacherous being lose its strength and hostility level treacherous beings collapse. It was terrifying to even think about it. It was like when a group of people fought using sticks, and suddenly, one of them got a knife. Of course, it was an unfair advantage. What made things worse was that every member of the red demon race possessed that white light. At that moment, Bacchus felt desperate and almost wanted to give up. "Leader, what should we do? The white light can kill our treacherous beings. If we lose the treacherous beings, we can't defeat the red demon race." At that point, the Glede demons panicked in fear and gathered behind Bacchus. Although he was also at a loss on what to do, as the leader of the Glede demons, he had a great mindset and quickly forced himself to calm down. 6 Glede demons had already died in the current round of the battle. Furthermore, the wolf owls on the 7 other Glede demons' bodies had fallen. All in all, 13 Glede demons lost their powers. On the other hand, the small stones in the hands of the red demons still glowed brightly as ever. Additionally, such a deadly treasure was not disposable. Soon enough, Bacchus came to a conclusion. They couldn't fight against the red demons. If they failed to escape from the birdcage, they would die. "Don't confront the red demons head-on. Fly around the birdcage," he shouted. "But we can't fly out," said one Glede demon. Howls filled the air as the other Glede demons behind him kept clawing at the birdcage for dear life. Bacchus did not answer. Now, they were really in a hopeless situation. Their only hope was that the birdcage would not last long. When the birdcage collapsed by itself, they could escape. If Bacchus could flee, he would surely ask about the news and find a way to get those kinds of stones like crazy. To avoid being easily caught by the red demons, he asked the Glede demons to fly around the birdcage. After all, they could still quickly get rid of the red demons even in the small space. However, it was not easy to catch and kill them. To their surprise, the red demons did not have the slightest intention to fly and capture them. Instead, they all stood on the ground and watched them fly. Meanwhile, Zen and his group lurked around under the protection of the magic camouflage skin and watched the battle between the two races. Even the two strongest races had a fatal weakness when they used the treacherous beings, which was they could not resist the light of annihilation. Thus, Zen and the others had felt confident that with the light of annihilation, they would win against these races. However, no one among them expected that just as the two races began fighting, the red demons brought out the holy stones. There was no holy stone on the Night View Island. That was what Decker had said, and based on Bacchus' expression, they saw that he also thought the same. The element spirit civilization has arrived, the snake goddess prompted. It seems that they acted faster, and they allied with the red demon race so quickly. Zen muttered. Since the element spirit civilization had handed over the holy stones to the red demons, he and the others also needed to do something. Perhaps, they could be allies with the Gleed demons in the Night View Island. Even then, they were still hesitant as they hid in the magic camouflage skin. It was not wise to expose their whereabouts too early. Besides, it was highly likely that the element spirit civilization also tracked them. While they thought about it, Tate had already grown tired of the Gleed demons' movements. He chuckled and said, "This birdcage is for you. Now, you cannot fly out, and you will suffer greatly." With that, he reached out and pinched the birdcage hard. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. As a result, the birdcage that covered the mountain began to shrink. Then, the relatively large space began to shrink continually as well. Bacchus saw the shrinking birdcage and became even more desperate. The treacherous beings could not help them in such a narrow space, so they had no choice but to suffer the red demon's torture. As the birdcage continued to shrink, its edges suddenly touched something. Tate looked towards it and saw a space that moved as the birdcage shrank. There was something hidden inside it. His blood ran cold. "Who is it?" he asked sharply. Whoever got trapped in that birdcage, they would surely be ground into pieces. The holy stone was strong, but it was a secret weapon. One could use its maximum power only during surprise attacks. In actuality, Tate wanted to eradicate both the Gleed demon race and the Grand Mighty race. "Come out." He took out a bone spear from behind and threw it towards that space, which kept changing color. Whoosh! The bone spear flew towards the target at once. Just as it was about to hit the target, a hand stretched out from the space and firmly caught the bone spear. Naturally, Tate was surprised. The red demons were also stunned. There were very few creatures on the Night View Island that could catch the bone spear Tate had thrown. Also, all of those who could catch it relied on treacherous beings to do it for them. Zen, who caught the bone spear, lifted the magic camouflage skin and smiled. "I just wanted to watch," he said. When the red demons and the Gleed demons saw him and the other human beings, they were stunned again. Tate and Bacchus were the most surprised. How could they not, when they knew more about the Ghost Mountain than Decker did? Decker had only seen Zhurong, and that was because only Zhurong had occasionally appeared over the years. In the depths of the Ghost Mountain, however, there were still dozens of human beings. Moreover, the Ghost Mountain had recognized 3 humans as the great ghost priests of the mountain. Both Bacchus and Tate dreamed of becoming the great ghost priests, and that was why Bacchus collected the arcana like mad. The truth behind it was if he became the great ghost priest, he could fuse with a hatred-level treacherous being, and become an invincible entity on the Night View Island. Chapter 3642, Mess Up. Naturally, Bacchus regarded the sudden appearance of these people as good news. This could probably change the course of things. Now that the Gleed demon race had been backed into a corner, he hoped against all hope that someone would arrive to make a difference. Meanwhile, Tate was not thoroughly pleased by this recent turn of event. This could ruin everything. He was shrinking the birdcage when all of a sudden, some humans appeared inside it. Why now? Where did these people even come from? He was utterly baffled. Was it possible that they were from somewhere outside the Night View Island? But where? Even though the Night View Island was an isolated place, the creatures in it still had a certain knowledge of the outside world. If one stood upon the mountains surrounding the Night View Island, they could easily see other pure sky platforms. However, no one would be able to fly there. It was also known that there was a cave in the center of the lake. A long passageway was connected to it. Nevertheless, the passageway had long been broken. No one would be able to pass through it. 2 days ago, Tate took his clansmen with him to search for arcana from every house they encountered. Under normal circumstances, the red demon race wouldn't raid other races. For one thing, the Night View Island housed too many races. If they took it too far, they would be the first one to suffer. However, the Ghost Mountain needed a new great ghost priest. This might be a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Obviously, Tate would never let this amazing opportunity just pass him by. He was determined to seize it while it stood. The small races were also well aware about the changes in the Ghost Mountain. Once every couple of years, the Red Demon race would come and the small races would obediently hand their arcana over to them. They needed not surrender all of the arcana they had. Nevertheless, they still had to give away most of them. While Tate was searching for the arcana, he suddenly saw a few flames emerging from the center of the lake. The flames were moving closer to the lake shore at a very fast rate. They were heading straight towards Tate. All of a sudden, he realized that he was in grave danger. He immediately released his treacherous being. It took the form of a huge tortoise. It possessed the highest defensive power among all of the resentment-level treacherous beings. As the flames continued to surge towards his direction, a flash of white light shot out from the center of it. Tate didn't take the flash of light seriously at first. He was quite confident it wouldn't be able to reach him. He thought it was impossible for such an energy fluctuation to break through his strong defense. Tate had complete faith in his treacherous being. However, the supposedly indestructible tortoise suddenly appeared weakened soon after the white light hit its body. It even looked like it was suffering from an extremely horrific torture. It began thrashing around in agony. How could this be? This tortoise was a resentment-level treacherous being. Tate was utterly bewildered. He couldn't believe his own eyes. The other members of the Red Demon race were also dumbfounded. They were well aware of how powerful the tortoise was. How could it succumb to such a feeble-looking energy? Even the strongest warrior of the Grand Mighty race and Bacchus of the Gleed Demon race had never been able to break through the tortoise's shell. They thought nothing could ever penetrate it. However, the white light was able to incapacitate it quite easily. Why? Not one of them was able to explain how this came to be. As soon as the flames reached the shore, their blazing temperature made the water boil. They released steam and raised the temperature of the area. In the blink of an eye, the flames turned into 3 human-shaped fire spirits. Little by little, pieces of burning red armor began to condense all over the fire spirits' bodies. Soon enough they were fully covered in armor. Evidently, the 3 fire spirits came from the Holy Wings armor. All of them belonged to Slade just like Gavin. Although the Element Spirit civilization arrived at the treasure bottle platform on time, they were still unable to stop the Grand Master of Heaven. The Grand Master of Heaven managed to escape them easily. The godly way extracted from the bottle was way too important to them. Naturally, the Ice Spirit didn't want the Grand Master of Heaven to take it away. Therefore, they determinedly chased after him even outside of the treasure bottle platform. The Ice Spirit was utterly relentless. They had to get the godly way back no matter what. They would still chase after him even if they had to go through the Amber Cave, which was known as the Nihility race's lair. The Nihility race and the Element Spirit civilization had been fighting against each other for such a long time. Both of these races always had something that would give them advantage over the other. But this time, the Nihility race had taken away something they shouldn't have. Therefore, the Element Spirit civilization would stop at nothing. They were determined to fight even if it would cost them their lives. Halfway through the chase, the 3 stone men placed in the underground cave were completely destroyed. The treacherous beings inside them were slain as well. The Ice Spirit instantly sensed that Zen and his group had entered the underground cave. However, the Ice Spirit was busy chasing down the Grand Master of Heaven. Both Claire and Gavin were helping him pursue the Grand Master of Heaven. Thus, he had to send out the other members of the Element Spirit race in Slade's body. The 3 fire spirits were named Sanderson, Townsend, and Chauncey. They were the leaders of the fire spirits inside Slade's body. Even though they were not on par with Gavin in terms of strength, they were not much inferior to him. They arrived at the underground cave a little too late. After looking around, they discovered that Zen and his companions had already disappeared. In the past, the primeval Lord of Heaven and the others had also quietly vanished. The Element Spirit civilization hadn't come into contact with the treacherous beings back then. Obviously, they were not aware of the existence of the 4 Spirits sect. They also did not know where the primeval Lord of Heaven and the others were hiding. After a long period of time, the Element Spirit civilization finally discovered how to get to the Jade Pure Realm and enter the Pure Sky platforms. They were just about to enter the Night View Island when they faced a very unfortunate scenario. The passageway had already been destroyed by the primeval Lord of Heaven and the others. This time, Sanderson, Townsend, and Chauncey just went straight into the pool. After boiling the water in the pool, they were able to see the passageway. When they saw it getting repaired, they became ecstatic. It wasn't as hopeless as they first thought it was. The flames emanating from their bodies were intense and scorching hot, which made the water around boil instantly. Before setting out, the Ice Spirit instructed them that they only needed to inquire about the movements of Zen and his group. Zen might have managed to repair the passageway. But if he failed, the three of them could just lurk in the cave to observe. The three fire spirits didn't actually take the Ice Spirit's words seriously. They doubted that the passageway of the Night View Island could be repaired so easily. Therefore, they didn't expect that the Ice Spirit was absolutely right. Obviously, they knew that the Night View Island was far more significant than the lives of Zen and his companions. They were so thrilled that they ignored the Ice Spirit's words. They hurried into the Night View Island through the passageway. As soon as they emerged from the lake, they encountered the Red Demon race. It seemed like these demons could easily be intimidated. This was exactly what they wanted. They needed to gather as much information as they could right off the bat. Hurry up, put out these flames, Tate ordered his clansmen, all the while retreating farther away from the fire spirits. With the protection from the turtles, the red demons were not exactly afraid of getting burned by ordinary flames. But just as they took a step forward, the turtles covering their bodies were instantly pierced by the white light. The turtles immediately collapsed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The red demons who rushed in front suddenly burst into flames. Their bodies were immediately burned to a crisp. Their corpses were completely charred. When the other red demons saw this, they were terrified and retreated quickly. Seeing that they were severely disadvantaged, Tate thought about escaping as well. However, it didn't seem like he would be able to do so. The three fire spirits turned into roaring flames and effectively surrounded Tate and his clansmen. Answer all my questions, or no one will ever see you alive again. Sanderson began intimidating them for information. Tate was absolutely terrified. As they were leaning at each other's backs, he felt his companions quivering with fear. He actually felt like his race would be exterminated today. They would be killed on the spot if he didn't cooperate. With all honesty, he told Sanderson what had happened on the Night View Island. He even explained everything in detail. He couldn't stop thinking how this might be their ends. But after he finished speaking, he was surprised the three fire spirits didn't attack them. It seemed like they had no intention of killing them now. He was even more astounded when they threw more than 10 holy stones in front of him. They even taught him how to use the light of annihilation. In 3 days' time, I expect you to collect all of the arcana available on the Night View Island, Sanderson ordered Tate. Before, this would have been an impossible task to accomplish. But with the help of the holy stones, nothing was impossible. If they used the light of annihilation like they were taught, the creatures on the Night View Island would be no match for the red demon race at all. The first ones Tate robbed of arcana were the creatures on the territory of the red demon race. This was the best place he could start. After he took every single arcanum from these creatures, he proceeded to rob those within the territory of the Gleed demon race. Now, Tate's greatest goal was to annihilate the Gleed demon race as well as the Grand Mighty race using the power of the holy stones. Naturally, Bacchus couldn't just stand and watch as Tate raided the areas on the border of the Gleed demon race. He brought his people with him to slaughter the creatures from the red demon race's territory. The battle between the two races commenced tonight. Chapter 3643, Cooperation. Sanderson, Townsend, and Chauncey all had a clear goal: to dominate the entirety of Night View Island as soon as possible. Thus, they decided to pour their combined efforts onto realizing this goal, so much so that they even lost interest in trying to track Zen's whereabouts. With this goal realized, the Ice Spirit could enter the Ghost Mountain directly when he came here. This would make for great credit. If they used the credit they would gain from this, they could apply to the Ice Spirit to take back the control of the Holy Wings armor. Previously, the Holy Wings armor was controlled by Slade, which assured the peace of the element spirit race inside it. All factions had their own positions, but the minority was always subordinate to the majority. Once all opinions were organized and consolidated, everyone was found to have sided with Slade. It was through this that everyone managed to live peacefully for many years. Factional disputes erupted every now and then within the Holy Wings armor. The matter with Gavin is quite the most significant example. It was forbidden for him to take the Holy Wings armor away, but, through Claire's support, Gavin was able to do it, which earned him the ire of the members of the element spirit race, the fire spirits in particular. Sanderson, Townsend, and Chauncey were three fire spirits who were the most dissatisfied with Gavin. Normally, these three fire spirits should have already gone back since they found nobody in the cave and confirmed that the passageway had already been repaired. Anything else outside of their immediate tasks should have been ignored. However, in order to obtain the Holy Wings armor, they had to make a great contribution that would qualify them to make a request to the Ice Spirit. Once they gained control of the red demon race, they would quickly make their way towards the Grand Mighty Race's territory on the southern tip of the Night View Island. So long as they were able to destroy one race and control the other two, then their mission would be complete. None of them expected Zen and the others to pop out of nowhere and get involved in the battle. "Dave, kill them," Tate ordered. To him, so long as he had the holy stones, then he could control everything. Tate felt no fear against those Gleed demons, so what more these mere humans? The humans in the Ghost Mountain might be very powerful, but there was no way they'd be on these people's side since they rarely left the mountain. Dave quickly nodded in obeisance. Yes, Patriarch. As a strong red demon, Dave was easily one of Tate's most capable generals. He quickly led 10 other red demons and let out a mighty, thunderous roar. As they let out their battle cry, their bodies glowed as every square inch was completely covered by the turtles. Armed and boosted, the red demons were ready for battle and quickly rushed towards the mountainside. Thump, 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 like boulders that came careening down onto the side of a mountain, these red demons made the earth tremble as they ran. The sight was incredibly terrifying. Huge, hulking creatures with thick skin made long, fast strides as they made their way to battle. Their sharp claws were their most formidable weapons and were able to shatter everything in their wake. Bacchus sported a complicated look on his face as he led the Gleed demons towards the top of the birdcage. They too did not know where Zen and his group had come from. However, the enemy of their enemy was a friend, and the best thing to do now was forge an alliance with these newcomers. He knew that once Tate killed these humans, he'd definitely be next. Unfortunately, as much as the Gleed demons were determined to fight, the white light upon their opponents' bodies was too strong. If they rushed towards them, they would only be killed instantly. Dang it, Bacchus cursed inwardly. It felt like a sick joke that these powerful treacherous beings proved to be so weak in front of mere white light. While Bacchus tried to think of a way for them to fight, the red demons had already reached Zen. At that moment, Fuxi, the snake goddess, Eastern Emperor Tai, Yasamine, King Yayan, and the 3 eternal realm hunters stretched out their palms. On their palms were holy stones, bright and bursting with power. These holy stones did not contain much light of annihilation but could still easily kill hostility-level treacherous beings. Buzz. With a slight, buzzing sound, streaks of light shot forth from the holy stones and struck the oncoming red demons. Before all these, Dave had thought that they had already won. There was no way these humans, who hadn't absorbed treacherous beings, could engage in combat against them. However, just as he and his men got close enough, these humans suddenly raised their hands and defied all his expectations. What in the world was that white light? Was it, actually, the light of annihilation? Whatever it was, the sight shook Dave to the bone. Just as he realized that something was wrong, the bright light of annihilation hit him square on the chest. In an instant, his turtle collapsed. The loss of the turtle immediately reduced his speed and power. Treacherous beings were indispensable to the creatures on the Night View Island. At that moment, without the turtles' protection, Dave and his men became sitting ducks. Soon enough, he found the end of a spear pointed right in the middle of his forehead. It was a spear Zen borrowed from Campbell. Pop! All Dave felt was a sharp sting before a sharp, splitting pain flooded his senses and he lost consciousness. His head, simply put, had exploded by the force Zen exerted onto the spear. Whoosh! It wasn't over. Having disposed of him, Zen quickly turned around and turned his weapon towards his other opponents. In a flash, another red demon's head also exploded. Campbell's spear was a good match for the light of annihilation. If Zen chose to infuse it with the light, then it would shine a bright, blinding silver. However, he didn't see the need to do that and found it unnecessary. Holy stones were previously unheard of on the Night View Island, so the creatures naturally did not know yet how to guard themselves against the light of annihilation. Once the treacherous beings had been absorbed by the creatures, their original bodies were insulated by the treacherous beings. This was the best course of action when there was no light of annihilation on the island. It was a known fact that the Red Demon race and the Gleed Demon race were both very powerful. The Wooden Leaf race could never hope to compare. The thorny treacherous beings they absorbed were weak and were actually the root cause of their mediocrity. However, despite their power, both the Red Demon race and the Gleed Demon race were unable to withstand a single blow from the light of annihilation. Pop, pop, pop. Zen navigated fluidly around the red demons, almost as if he was a ghost. The spear in his hand was a deadly harbinger of death that quickly ended the life of each red demon within the vicinity. It was jarring for the red demons that this young man was able to power through the treacherous beings they had absorbed and even make their heads explode with a single spear. In their stupefied state, they found themselves unable to do anything against such a formidable opponent. A few red demons turned their tail and ran, but it was in vain since Zen caught up to them eventually. Plop, 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 a massacre. Dave had led his men into a massacre. They also have the light of annihilation. How in the world can we fight against them? Not long ago, the red demons had also used the light of annihilation to defeat the Gleed demons. Never in their lives would they have thought that the weapon they once wielded to victory would someday be used against them. It was with this thought that a few red demons began to tremble. They were the apex predators in the Jade Pure realm. They were the strongest, the deadliest, and the most formidable. Over the years, the treacherous beings they had absorbed merged with their bodies and gave them strength. Without the treacherous beings, it was as if they forgot how to fight entirely. Decker, who stood at the back of the crowd, was quite frightened by the spectacle. He knew that Zen and his group were powerful, but not to this extent. He never expected that they'd suddenly take out the holy stones and utilize them so as to kill the red demons so quickly. He was practically speechless. Could the creatures outside the Night View Island truly be so powerful? It wasn't just Decker. Tate, who also watched the entire scene unfold, could only stare at Zen in disbelief. Only then did he truly realize the gravity of his recklessness. He never should have made an enemy out of these humans. Could there still be a chance for him to correct his mistake? Those flame creatures were willing to cooperate with him. Maybe these humans would too. Tate forced a smile on his face and decided to take on the diplomatic route this time around. Those flame creatures came to the Night View Island to collect arcana, and he did not doubt that these humans came here for the exact same purpose. It's your first time visiting the Night View Island, correct? You must be here for the Ghost Mountain. Our race has actually collected quite a lot of arcana. Perhaps we can settle this fight with a promise of cooperation. He did not care who between the fire creatures and these humans would finally obtain the arcana, but it would be best if they fought with each other instead of against them. However, Zen merely ignored him and instead turned to Bacchus. Hey, what do you say we kill these red demons together? Chapter 3644, Allies. At that moment, Tate and the red demons feared for their lives because of Zen's words. On the other hand, the Gleed demons were overjoyed. In just a short time, the Gleed demon race turned the tables against the red demon race and gained the upper hand. Of course, Bacchus was very excited. Of course, we are never on the same side with the red demon race, he said in a trembling voice. All the Gleed demons flapped their wings, and the air became filled with vibrations. They were ready to rush down from the sky at any time. As of now, the red demons had to face the attacks from both groups. Most importantly, those humans still held the holy stones in their hands. They could not believe that they got reduced to a hopeless situation in a short time. Tate's face darkened in anger. When he saw that the human race and the Gleed demon race were about to fight, he suddenly waved his hand, and an exit appeared at the side of the birdcage. Let's go, he shouted. The fire creatures had bestowed the birdcage to him, and he could control it at will. The red demons had been afraid for a long while, and now that their leader initiated their escape, they would undoubtedly follow. Under Tate's command, the red demons rushed out of the birdcage. This time, he led over 100 members of the red demon race out. When Dave and his team had attacked Zen's group, more than 10 of them died. Now, more than 80 people were still alive. Upon hearing those, Bacchus narrowed his eyes. You want to leave? It won't be easy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Then, all the Gleed demons rushed towards the red demons below. In turn, the red demons used the black turtles to protect themselves from the Gleed demons' attacks. The black turtles were a powerful defense weapon. The Gleed demons' wings tried to slice them, but it was hard to break through such a defense in a short time. At that point, Fuxi, the snake goddess, King Yayan, and the others came from the other side and launched an attack. However, they did not need to kill the red demons directly. What they did was to use the light of annihilation to remove the black turtles from red demons' bodies. Streaks of the light of annihilation fired through the black turtles and dissipated them. Without the black turtles' protection, the red demons were at a disadvantage. As soon as the Gleed demons swooped down again, their sharp wings hacked through the red demons' bodies like large sabers. In a few seconds, the Gleed demons had killed more than 20 red demons. The other red demons did not dare to keep fighting anymore. They all rushed towards the exit of the birdcage. But before they got out, the exit of the birdcage suddenly closed. Leader, why did you close it? Let us out, don't abandon us. Only half of the red demons that were with Tate had escaped, while there were nearly 20 red demons in the birdcage. They desperately begged their leader to unlock the door. Even the red demons outside the birdcage also looked quite hesitant. After all, they were from the same race, and some of them were even biological brothers. Tate also hesitated, but if he did not close the birdcage, then Bacchus and those human beings would have a chance to go out. In the end, he said in a firm voice, "We will leave first, but we will definitely take revenge." Afterward, he led the remaining red demons to escape. The red demons in the birdcage fell into despair. They lost the will to fight, and they died without any resistance. Crack! Bacchus, blade-like wings chopped from top to bottom and split the last red demon into two. He wiped the bloodstains on his wings. Then he looked at Zen and asked, "Is there any way to break through this birdcage?" He was not satisfied with the current result. If they continued to chase after the red demons that escaped, they could kill them and Tate at once. All the red demons led by Tate were the elites of their race. If all of them died now, then the entire red demon race would be eliminated from the Night View Island. Without directly answering Bacchus, Zen reached out his hand and touched the birdcage. The birdcage had a great space power, and it was not an ordinary other shore token. If the ancestry-level bloodline in his body could help, then he should not have any problems breaking the birdcage. But the ancestry-level bloodline did not seem to react unless his life was in danger. Thus, he could not count on it. He looked at the snake goddess and the others, only to find that she and Pearson appeared to communicate in secret. "Snake goddess, can the birdcage be destroyed?" he asked. "I think it can," the snake goddess answered with a nod. "Then break it now," Bacchus uttered impatiently. "It needs some time," the snake goddess explained. When he heard those words, Bacchus slightly frowned. The red demons escaped at a fast speed. If they broke the birdcage now, they would still have a chance to catch up with the red demons. If they got delayed for a little more, how could they catch up? Now, the Eternal Realm Hunters were very confident that they could break through the birdcage. The power of space wove the birdcage. As long as Sawyer and Thurston worked together to use the black sun and absorb a part of the birdcage, the entire birdcage would collapse. Pearson wanted to destroy the birdcage directly, but the snake goddess stopped him. The Gleed demons were very powerful on the Night View Island. However, the red demon race had defeated them because of the Light of Annihilation. Since they did not have the Holy Stones, they could not control the Light of Annihilation. Thus, they would still fail if they fought the red demons again. In conclusion, the Gleed demon race had no choice but to cooperate with Zen and his group. Bacchus was in a hurry to catch up with the red demons, not only to kill Tate but also to fight for the Holy Stones in their hands. Although nearly half of the red demons had died, only the remaining alive red demons had Holy Stones with them. Bacchus felt disappointed. "Can you be faster?" he asked impatiently. Just as the snake goddess was about to shake her head, pieces of white hairs fell from not far away. The appearance of the white-haired monsters could take their time, so she pointed at them to warn the group. When Bacchus saw them, he sighed in exasperation. Now that the white-haired monsters were there, they definitely could not chase the red demons. Even if they applied ghost powder on their bodies, they would still attract the white-haired monsters when they traveled at night. Furthermore, after the battle among the three sides, they had shaken off a lot of ghost powder, which naturally attracted many white-haired monsters. As soon as the white-haired monsters appeared, they had to stop all their movements. The Gleed demons, Zen and his group quickly reapplied the ghost powder and stayed still. These white-haired monsters wandered around the Gleed demons and Zen's group, but because of the ghost powder's protection, they could not see the humans and Gleed demons. Finally, they walked towards the corpses of the red demons. Those red demons just died, so their blood was still a bit fresh. Even their corpses emitted powerful life energy. The white-haired monsters devoured them. After they finished, they left some arcana behind and disappeared. Because Bacchus and the others got delayed for a while, Tate and his group had already gone far. Now, Bacchus was no longer in a hurry. Meanwhile, the snake goddess and her group wanted to stall for more time. Therefore, they did not destroy the birdcage so quickly. Pearson's hands turned into thin threads and pretended to coil them around the birdcage. Fuxi also condensed marks of 8 diagrams in different sizes on the birdcage. After they pretended to be busy for some time, Sawyer and Thurston finally operated the black sun. The black sun's strong gravitational force sucked a part of the birdcage into it. The originally square birdcage looked a little distorted, but it still maintained its entire shape. Then, Sawyer and Thurston separated their hands, and the black sun disappeared. Clatter! It destroyed the balance of space force inside the birdcage with a muffled sound, and then the space birdcage collapsed. The Gleed demons were surprised when they saw the broken birdcage. These extremely arrogant Gleed demons had never allied with anyone on the Night View Island. They had always been quite strong and did not need help from the other races, but now they needed help from these humans. Chapter 3645, Attack the Amber Cave. To the west of the Supreme Pure Realm, the sky glowed an ominous red for several days. A huge fire cloud floated in the sky day and night, and could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. Below this fire cloud was the Amber Cave. People trembled in fear at its name. Amber Cave was the base of the Nihility race. The Amber Cave was notorious in the Supreme Pure Realm. No one was willing to set foot near it. The Element Spirit civilization never wanted to near it, either. The members of the Element Spirit race were composed of energy. If they came into contact with the white mist of the Amber Cave, their energy would be sucked into it till they were exhausted. Once all their energy was drained, they would die. For the members of the Element Spirit race, this was a tragic way to die. Legend said there was once a member of the Element Spirit race chasing after a member of the Nihility race. When the former neared the Amber Cave, the white mist gathered to form a huge hand that grabbed the warrior, and the warrior was never to be found since. Since then, the members of the Element Spirit race never dared approach the Amber Cave again. But today, the Element Spirit civilization launched a massive attack on the Amber Cave. On the ground on one side of the Amber Cave, there was a huge rune. The Holy Wings armor sat upright in the center of the rune. Flames were constantly erupting from the Holy Wings armor. The flames followed the lines of the rune and gathered at the end, forming a huge swirl of flame, which spiraled towards the sky. This was how the huge fire cloud was formed. Da, da, da. The fire cloud in the sky shook violently. Drops of fire rained down from the fire cloud, falling into the white mist. The white mist could devour all kinds of energy. The fire rain had incredible destructive power, but it seemed as though the white mist just swallowed it up with no qualms. Standing nearby, the ice spirit stared at the spectacular scene, blinking occasionally. Sitting cross-legged beside him, Claire looked bored. After a while, she yawned. After so long, the mist in the Amber Cave hasn't weakened, even a bit. The void dust's appetite is shocking. It's not easy to satisfy it, replied the ice spirit calmly. It was speculated that a fire cloud that huge should have gathered all the power of all the fire spirits in the entire Element Spirit civilization. After several consecutive days of burning, there didn't seem to be any changes to the white mist. Like what the ice spirit mentioned, the white mist was actually void dust that spread all over the Jade Pure Realm. In the Jade Pure Realm, it was colorless and tasteless. If anyone had the misfortune of drifting away from a pure sky platform, they would be quietly devoured by the void dust, never to see the light of day again. When the void dust was moved to the Amber Cave, it gained a white color and seemed to have form, although it seemed just like a vapor. As soon as the ice spirit finished speaking, the white mist suddenly surged. Dozens of misty dragons popped out of the white mist and headed straight for the fire cloud in the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They finally got impatient. A hint of excitement flashed in Claire's eyes. These mist dragons soared into the sky and went straight for the fire cloud, trying to wipe it out. It's not that they got impatient, said the ice spirit calmly. Don't they just want to put out the fire cloud? Asked Claire. The ice spirit smiled faintly and chuckled. The source of the fire cloud is here, but they head for the fire cloud. Why is that? They plan to take us by surprise. Yes. Just then, the mist formed a huge hand that extended towards them from the Amber Cave. In one sweeping motion, the giant hand slapped the area where the ice spirit and his companions were. The power contained in this slap was enough to squash them into nothingness, leaving only a deep palm print on the ground. Something similar had happened before, leaving a giant print in the shape of a hand on the ground. Over time, it filled with water, forming a lake, which was then named the Five Fingers Lake by the creatures in the Supreme Pure Realm. The ice spirit had expected the counterattack from the Amber Cave. He blinked, and suddenly the space was dislocated. From the position where he and Claire stood to the place of the rune that was burning with flames, the space had moved backward 5,000 feet. Hiss, hiss. There was no shocking impact or sound when the huge foggy hand slapped down. It sank into the ground silently and devoured everything along the way without a sound. After leaving a huge palm print on the ground, the white mist quickly flowed back into the Amber Cave. When the white mist retreated, the ice spirit blinked again, and the space returned to where it had originally been. Because the foundation below had been devoured by the void dust, the ice spirit, Claire, and the Holy Wings armor looked as if they were standing on a cubic stone. Sizzle, sizzle. By now, the mist dragons had devoured half of the fire cloud. However, with a flash of light on the surface of the Holy Wings armor, flame began to flow onto the huge rune once again. The swirl of flames also quickly blew up, sending more and more flames into the fire cloud. The only purpose of the element spirit civilization was to drain their enemy. The void dust could indeed devour everything, but it was impossible to devour things infinitely. Even if the void dust had a shocking appetite, there would come a time when it would be satisfied. In fact, the ice spirit had been waiting for the counterattack of the Nihility race this whole time. If the members of the Nihility race hadn't made any movement, and they were not afraid of the rain of fire that constantly came down, they didn't need to do anything at all. All they needed to do was to stay within the Amber Cave. Anyway, the element spirit civilization wouldn't be able to break in. However, the Nihility race fought back, and in turn, it proved that the ice spirit's guess was right. The void dust's appetite was slowly being satiated. If the fire rain continued to burn, sooner or later, the void dust would become full. Let the thunder spirits join the fight, the ice spirit ordered. Yes, sir, replied Gavin from within the armor. Soon after, streaks of lightning began to circulate the rune. Ominous crackling noises could be heard constantly from the edge of the fire cloud above, and then the fire cloud was enveloped in flashes of lightning. Just as the element spirit civilization launched a more aggressive attack, a ball of flame suddenly shot out in the distance. It was getting closer and closer. Claire squinted at it and said, "It's the avatar of Sanderson." After the 3 stone statues in the underground cave were destroyed, the ice spirit had sent 3 fire spirits there. Sizzle. Sanderson's avatar came to the ice spirit's side and reported to him, "The passageway to the Night View Island has been repaired." All the eyes of the ice spirit sparkled with excitement. Claire raised her eyebrows and smiled devilishly. "Your hunch is right," she said to the ice spirit. The ice spirit did not respond. He was awakening an eye on his body. A white film was attached to the surface of the eyeball. After the eye woke up, the white film began to quickly peel off, turning into a small white snake. The little white snake glanced at the amber cave and scolded the ice spirit, "Are you stupid or something? After all this time, you still haven't taken down the amber cave. Our plan regarding the 10 Directions house has been delayed for several days." Claire's expression darkened and she trembled slightly. In the eyes of all the members of the element spirit race, the ice spirit was a supreme existence. Being scolded by this small white snake made Claire, who was loyal to the ice spirit, feel very uncomfortable. But she also knew that everything in the element spirit civilization was bestowed by them. Whether it was the Holy Wings armor, the treacherous beings they had merged with, or even the rise of the element spirit civilization were all due to them. When the ice spirit told her that these snakes hiding in the depths of the Jade Pure Realm were the foundation of the element spirit civilization, she was too shocked to even speak. Chapter 3646, Snake Master. Most of the time, the members of the element spirit race had no concept of individuality. For the most part, they worked as a collective and were indistinct from each other. However, when an element's life expanded to a certain extent, it inevitably formed a unique individual. Otherwise, their strength would become stagnant and stop growing. In the past, the ice spirit had informed Claire that he was actually composed of countless members of the element spirit race and was infused with an independent consciousness. The ice spirit had been created by those snakes on the Jade Pure Realm, while the subsequent members of the element spirit race had been formed directly or indirectly by the ice spirit. Therefore, the ice spirit formed the foundation of the element spirit civilization, while the snakes were the foundation of the ice spirit. For a long time, even the ice spirit had been unaware of the existence of those snakes. Under the leadership of the ice spirit, the element spirit civilization had flourished. They continued to explore the upper stages, the 3 purities stage, and the abstruse energy world. They had earned the strongest other shore tokens and even captured many creatures from beyond the abstruse energy world. The strange world made up of light dots had proven difficult to understand, but the mystery about it made it all the more fascinating. Unfortunately, the members of the element spirit race had natural inhibitions, so it was difficult for them to explore it to the furthest reaches. Over the past 1,000 chaotic eras or more, warriors rose, one after another, to challenge them, and they were each eliminated by the element spirit civilization. Except for the strongest of their opponents, the human race who had been forced to escape into the Night View Island, almost all other civilizations had been defeated by them. They had remained the absolute and dominating authority until the Nihility race had appeared. Before the appearance of the Nihility race, the treacherous beings had also begun making inroads into the Jade Pure Realm, and an unprecedented chaotic battle had even erupted within the Jade Pure Realm. In the element spirit race, none but the ice spirit had participated in the chaotic battle. Later, he returned to the Jade Pure realm, together with the white snake, but the snake commanded a force more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Claire was confused when she heard the ice spirit's revelation. How could such a powerful force have been hidden in the Jade Pure realm for so many years without anyone noticing? She later discovered that this powerful force had long been annihilated, and the last remnants of it were now living in the form of treacherous beings. In essence, once this force appeared, the element spirit civilization would reinforce their control over the other shore. Who would have thought that a bird in the Jade Pure realm would support the Grand Master of Heaven, who in turn led the members of the Nihility race to battle the element spirit civilization even now? At the little white snake's reproachful words, the ice spirit's emotions remained unfazed. He only calmly replied, "The void dust has a huge appetite. I'm afraid it will take much longer time. I wonder if you have a better suggestion, Snake Master." "Give up now," the Snake Master said. As soon as these words were spoken, both Claire and the ice spirit were stunned. That godly way was of the utmost importance. And they were just quitting so easily. Why? Claire couldn't help asking for clarification. The Snake Master suddenly raised his head, and his eyes shone with a green light. All of a sudden, Claire felt as if her brain had been struck by a sledgehammer, and her face contorted in pain. The intense pain rendered her unable to maintain her form. Cracks appeared all over her body. With a snapped fizzle and several sparks, she transformed into a ball of flames, revealing her original form. "You have no right to question me," the Snake Master said coldly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The flames simmered down, and then reconstructed a white skin and body, and Claire resumed her old appearance. She swallowed the pain and knelt down to the Snake Master. A trace of anger lingered in the ice spirit's eyes, but he made no comment. He had carefully concealed his anger deep inside. The Snake Master had a dominating aura. The twin creatures and the Fury Flame, formerly cultivated by the ice spirit, were all killed by the Snake Master because of a single sentence. Les had almost died at the hands of the Snake Master. Although he had released Les because the ice spirit had begged him to spare his life, the Snake Master had banned Les from merging with any treacherous being. He even refused to tell him the method for using the holy stones. "Why?" the ice spirit repeated Claire's question. "The Night View Island is very important," the Snake Master replied. "Because of the hatred-level treacherous beings dwelling in the Ghost Mountain?" the ice spirit once again questioned. To his knowledge, there were hatred-level treacherous beings in existence in the Ghost Mountain. Hatred-level treacherous beings, the Snake Master sneered, "They are an insignificant concern. Then it is to kill those humans?" the ice spirit continued asking. "Humans?" the Snake Master sneered with more contempt, "They are hardly even worth mentioning." The ice spirit gave up questioning then. Although he had already discovered some secrets concerning the existence of the Four Spirits sect through the Snake Master, he was unclear about the grudges involved. After all, these were things that had happened beyond the chaos. "Do you recall the wolf teeth I gave you?" the Snake Master asked. "Yes, I do." His eyes gleamed. "Those were very special. There was a sum of 10 wolf teeth. Each of them radiated a complex and powerful bloodline aura. The ice spirit had speculated often that these wolf teeth had to be really powerful treasures. The bloodline power of each wolf tooth could be directly used and freely altered. Unfortunately, when the Snake Master had given these wolf teeth to the ice spirit, they had been seriously damaged. The surface of these teeth was marred and covered with thin cracks as if the wolf teeth were close to shattering should he exert any pressure on them. The bloodline power within the wolf teeth had eventually dissipated, leaving only a faint aura. The Snake Master revealed nothing of the origins and uses of these wolf teeth, but he had asked him to keep them safe. At the Snake Master's sudden mention of them, the ice spirit was naturally interested. "Take the wolf teeth to the Ghost Mountain. You must find a way to wake him up," the Snake Master instructed. "Whom are you speaking of?" "Orlando, one of the 4 leaders of the Four Spirits sect. The Monkey Spirit King." When the ice spirit heard this, the spirals in his eyeballs rotated crazily. The shock to his heart instantly reflected on the surface of his pupils. Anyone who looked into his eyes could see the violent shock in his heart. Claire glanced at the ice spirit and was also surprised. Who was this Monkey Spirit King that the Snake Master was talking about? How could he have shocked the ice spirit so severely? The Snake Master had shared many secrets with the ice spirit, though he did not allow the ice spirit to share these. Even Claire, who was closest to him, remained uniformed concerning these secrets. Of course, she didn't know what this Monkey Spirit King was. "These wolf teeth are his obsession. Relinquish them to him, and then I will appear," the Snake Master said. Yes, sir. Without any hesitation, the Ice Spirit ordered Gavin to remove the rune. Buzz. As the Ice Spirit's pupils slightly enlarged, the cubic space enveloping this area vanished. The ground marked off by the cubic space fell into the big hole eroded by the mist hand. The Holy Wings armor, Claire, and Ice Spirit flew northeast, while the Snake Master remained behind. Hiss, hiss. The Snake Master wriggled his white body and slithered to the entrance of the amber cave. The light in his eyes flashed slightly, and 2 rays of orange light beamed into the white mist formed by the void dust. The white mist could devour any substance and even energy, and by all logical sense, it should consume the orange rays of light. However, the orange rays of light remained unaffected. Instead, they stirred the white mist, which then roiled and suddenly burst forth with a series of obscure and rhythmic songs. It was Sanskrit. You stupid birds proclaimed yourselves as destroyers. You are clueless to cause or effect, therefore, you will definitely lose. Chapter 3647, The Obsession of Birds. Purr, the white mist billowed ominously. Suddenly, a humanoid figure emerged from the white mist. It had long curly hair and a handsome face. It was Maynard, one of the personal disciples of the Grand Master of Heaven. What are you talking about? I don't understand, he said with a wild smile. The Snake Master sneered. In his eyes, the element spirit civilization was like dregs. How much more these humans? Go to perdition. Buzz. The little white snake's eyes glowed a fierce green again. So scary, Maynard mocked as he ducked into the white mist. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. A large amount of white mist that was formed from the void dust turned into green powder and fell into the amber cave. The green radiance the Snake Master could shoot from his eyes contained immeasurable power. It was able to destroy the void dust. Just then, the Grand Master of Heaven emerged from the void dust. You go to perdition too. The little white snake's eyes glowed green once more, as he aimed at the head of the Grand Master of Heaven. However, the Grand Master of Heaven calmly raised one hand. Before the green radiance reached him, a hand emerged from the mist just in time to block the attack. Calm down, the Grand Master of Heaven said with a shake of his head. Then, he took out a thin, sharp tooth and abruptly sliced off one of his hands. Not a drop of blood was shed, even though he severed his arm. The broken part quickly healed, and the bones and skin of the hand began to morph. Soon, the broken hand transformed into the shape of a bird. Whoosh! The bird flapped his wings urgently as he flew towards the shore. As he flew, the bird let out a series of rhythmic chirps, speaking in Sanskrit. 400 chaotic eras ago, you didn't even pay us any heed. Now you threaten us, the bird taunted. The Snake Master squinted at the bird in the sky. You are the stupidest in the world. He shouted angrily. That stupid bird's obsession is meaningless. Why do you still follow him? Just like what the bird said, the Snake Masters didn't take the birds seriously in the beginning. Over several hundred chaotic eras, they went about their own business as the birds evolved and grew in strength. Later, the birds chose to support the Nihility race, which was not weaker than the element spirit civilization. The Snake Masters were still considered quite powerful in the Jade Pure realm. In fact, they could even be considered the mainstay of the Four Spirits sect. This was because, in addition to the Snake Spirit sect, they also had the Human Spirit sect and the Monkey Spirit sect under their control. They represented the orthodox of the Four Spirits sect. They were also looked up to as somewhat of guardian angels to the sects under them, and also the sole hope for them to stay in this tiny place. However, all the birds practically worshipped the one stupid bird that could never wake up. The birds had evolved so much that they were strong enough to set an imbalance to the norm. The bird flapped his wings hurriedly, as though he was struggling to stay that high in the air. He looked down coldly at the Snake Master below. Our master's obsession is what makes our lives meaningful. You can question us underlings, but don't you dare insult our master. Stupid bird, he's the stupidest leader of the Four Spirits sect. The Snake Master's curse infuriated the bird. Narrowing his beady little eyes at the Snake Master below, he said, You aren't afraid of death. Instead, you are afraid of staying alive. If you dare insult our sect leader again, we will make sure you live forever. The threat hit home. The little white snake shut up immediately, his thin lips trembling slightly. He was a treacherous being, after all. In a secondary world such as the chaos, he was immortal. If he died, he would simply come back to life at a specific spot. For example, the coordinates of the world builders were on the winding road. No matter where they were killed, they would be reborn on the winding road, because the treacherous being's coordinates were set there. The Snake Master was the representative of the Snake Spirit sect. He was responsible for communicating with the element spirit civilization. He had 2 revival coordinates, one in the Jade Pure realm, and the other in the Ice Spirit. If he wanted to move freely between the 2 coordinates, he only needed to die. If the bird was able to catch and imprison the Snake Master to make him always alive, this would prove very troublesome. The communication channel between the element spirit civilization and the Snake Masters would be temporarily cut off, which was something he couldn't risk. But it was not easy to capture the Snake Master. The bird's words managed to shut the irascible Snake Master up. As the Snake Master realized that he was in a dangerous situation, he suddenly twisted his body into a white light and rushed into the amber cave. Sizzle, 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 the sickening sound of burning flesh rang through the amber cave as the little white snake resigned himself to the void dust. The void dust could erode everything, including the treacherous beings. A few seconds later, the little white snake was completely devoured without a trace. The bird, after witnessing what just happened, swerved and flew back to the Grand Master of Heaven in the mist. "What if you really kept the Snake Master here just now?" the Grand Master of Heaven asked playfully. The bird thought for a while and said, he still would have found a way to end his own life, but it might have taken longer. "Right," the Grand Master of Heaven muttered as his eyes flashed. "He behaved a little strangely just now, don't you think?" It was not the first time that the Grand Master of Heaven had come into contact with this irascible Snake Master. Among the many Snake Masters, this one was the most aggressive. It was uncharacteristic of him to run away from conflict. Just now, the bird just threatened him, but he quickly decided to kill himself. It was likely that this Snake Master had a very important task to fulfill. The bird knew what the Grand Master of Heaven was thinking. The battle in the Jade Pure realm is very fierce. I'm afraid they will soon occupy the Mist City again. So, he must have been in a hurry to go back. They must have lost miserably in the Battle of the Wine Basin. I'm afraid they won't make a concession this time, the Grand Master of Heaven said, scratching his chin. Right, the bird said. We need to hurry. Destroy your body and hatch the 3rd egg. The bird spirit sect had given the Grand Master of Heaven 3 bodies, each one stronger than the last. The first body was killed by Zen, so that was out of the picture already. The second body should have been able to last longer. However, things went much faster than the birds had expected. They wanted to give the Grand Master of Heaven more power, so they had to destroy the second body and use the 3rd one. Then, let's start now. The Grand Master of Heaven nodded and gave a few orders to Maynard before taking action. While the plan was in motion, Maynard was tasked with guarding the Amber Cave. After giving instructions to Maynard, the Grand Master of Heaven willingly submitted himself to the void dust. Sizzle. Once more, the sickening sizzling sound of melting flesh rang throughout the Amber Cave as the Grand Master of Heaven's body melted as the mist devoured his flesh. The void dust was actually a convenient tool to take one's life, if need be. This was why both the Snake Master just now and the Grand Master of Heaven submitted themselves to it. The bird then started to flap his wings and he flew through the white mist. He didn't stop flying until he had reached the deepest part of the Amber Cave, where he landed on a huge egg. Standing on the egg, he bent over and gently pecked at the egg with his orange, fluffy beak. Tiny and complex hairline cracks began to appear on the surface of the egg, and a powerful aura of life began to emanate from it. As the egg began to hatch, the bird watched. There was a hint of helplessness in his small, beady eyes. He knew that the Nihility way was a path of no return. But this was the only way, according to their sect leader. Every bird in the bird spirit sect was extremely loyal and would never betray their sect, even if it meant flying straight to their death. In a sense, they were trying to realize their sect leader's last wish, but at what cost? Chapter 3648, The Mist City. The white mist gradually spread throughout the Mist City, on the main pure sky platform, striking terror in the hearts of those who were there. A few of the more powerful beings took away a small part of the white mist through their own methods. More white mist turned into the streets, towers, walls, and grounds in this city. From the outside, nothing looked out of the ordinary. However, the streets, towers, walls, and even the grounds would turn into monsters that would devour the creatures at any time. On one of the broad streets within the city, a snow-white snake wriggled his body, slithering at an incredible speed. From the other side of the street, 3 birds spread their wings and launched themselves into the air. Friends, the snake sang wistfully. The song sounded like a cry of grief, a call to his companions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The snake's singing caught the attention of the 3 birds, who then swerved in the air to fly towards the little white snake. Their beady eyes dilated in a craze as they ferociously pecked at the body of the white snake. As they attacked him, they released more and more intense energy, until their bodies turned red. Boom, boom, boom. The three birds had worked themselves up into such a frenzy that they exploded violently, one after the other. The explosion caused a terrible shockwave that rippled across the city. Everything in this city was made of white mist. As the shock wave shook everything, the structures momentarily lost their forms and turned into white mist. However, the hapless structures only lasted a while. After a few moments, they returned to their original shapes. Meanwhile, the white snake's body was left in pieces by the explosion. As a treacherous being, he could have turned into various shapes, but the three birds released a considerable amount of light of annihilation when they exploded. The light of annihilation was fatal to the hostility level treacherous beings. As for the resentment level and hatred level treacherous beings, their bodies would change dramatically if they were hit by the light of annihilation. The resentment level treacherous beings would permanently lose the ability to change into different forms. As a result, their bodies would also become very fragile, making them easy targets. The white snake, with only half of his body left, could not return to his original shape. Coughing painfully, he leaned against a corner of the wall weakly. In the Mist City, one's only hope to survive was by constantly walking. The white snake could no longer move. He could only sit back and watch as the wall behind him softened and slowly turned into white mist. However, he was not too scared. In the secondary world, treacherous beings were immortal. If he were to be devoured by the white mist here and now, he was bound to be revived somewhere in the Jade Pure Realm. At this point, treacherous beings in the Jade Pure Realm could no longer remember how many times they had been killed and revived. Almost every one of the treacherous beings that had awakened had experienced over 1,000 cycles of reincarnation and death. In the beginning, they found this very exciting. However, as time went by, they grew bored as the cycle began to feel repetitive. For example, they had captured the Mist City hundreds of times. In order to consolidate the city, they set their revival coordinates here right after capturing it, but in the end, they were all killed, and even their coordinates were removed. However, this didn't stop them from capturing the Mist City repeatedly over time. This kind of behavior became extremely ridiculous and boring as it was an endless cycle. Wasn't it just a city that contained the void dust? What if they obtained a portion of the void dust that could be controlled? Could it determine the victory of this war? Unfortunately, although these awakened treacherous beings had their own self-consciousness, they worked for the Four Spirits sect. They could only follow the orders of the senior leaders of the Four Spirits sect. Complaining would solve nothing. The same thing happened in other areas in the Mist City. At first, the white snakes could only hide in the north of the Mist City. If they attempted to cross the center line of the city, the birds would instantly eliminate them. Now, as more and more snakes were swarming into the Mist City, the snakes felt emboldened. They began to spread to other areas in the city. Meanwhile, several black eagles stood perched on a gate tower in the south of the Mist City. The gate tower was also made of white mist. As aforementioned, all creatures that came into contact with the white mist were doomed to be devoured. Those black eagles were no exception. However, every time the gate tower began to twist and deform into white mist, the black eagles would flap their wings and hover above the gate tower. Then, when the gate tower returned to its original shape, the eagles would land on it once more. "The battle is coming to an end," the black eagle at the far right commented. The bird spirit sect once had 4 branches. These black eagles came from one of them. "It's not a big deal if we lose the Mist City," the black eagle in the lead said coldly. "We can always take it back later." The black eagle that had just spoken had 3 purple luminescent feathers on his head that shone beautifully. He was the leader of this branch. "But if we give up the Mist City, we will also have to give up all the spoils we got in the Battle of the Wine Basin," a black figure pointed out. The leader's eyes dimmed gloomily. "They have lost once in the Battle of the Wine Basin. Even if they make a comeback now, they will still be defeated in the end. Don't worry." Just as the leader was speaking, a bird flew over. The bird whispered something to them, while they listened attentively. After a short while, their originally gloomy eyes lit up with excitement. "What? They have retreated. They have left the Mist City." The black eagles couldn't believe their ears. The snake masters were so close to capturing the Mist City. The eagles led their team to fight them off, but they were just beginning to feel like it was futile. Now, they received news that the snake masters were retreating. Such good luck. "Is it a trap?" the leader asked suspiciously. "The Mist City can devour everything left behind. It's impossible for them to set up traps in the city. Once they leave, it's back to square one for them," a black eagle answered reassuringly with a shake of his head. "You're right. Even if they try to play tricks, it wouldn't work. They've given up the Mist City." Another black eagle agreed. Let the birds inspect the entire mist city, the leader ordered. Soon, thousands of birds spread their wings and flew across the mist city, carefully inspecting each street. But they didn't find anything suspicious. After they reported what they saw, the leader heaved a sigh of relief. By now, he was sure the snake masters had retreated. The other black eagles scratched their heads, confused as to why the snake masters had given up even though they were so close to victory. Sheepishly, they all turned to their leader, who stood perched in the center. The leader's eyes still couldn't shake off the feeling of suspicion. Uneasy, he helplessly returned the gazes of his constituents. It was just too strange. If the snake masters ended up taking the mist city, the leader would have felt less unsettled. But they had given up. This could only mean one thing. There was something more important to them than the mist city. The leader frowned deeply as he pondered over this. If the snake masters captured the mist city, they could take back the wine basin. What could possibly be more important than that? I'm going to visit someone. I should be able to get an answer there. After saying that, the leader flapped his wings and flew away. Meanwhile, in the source world, several black ships were floating in a clear lake in the Roaring Lake province. The water of the lake was so clear that it was almost mirror-like. During the battle against the Pear Hill, the black ship suffered great losses, but not as heavy as those of the Bering race and the Divine Farmer race. Most of their crew survived. But when the evil god was appointed as the new captain, the crew was enraged. Since then, they made all kinds of excuses to try to escape from the black ship. According to the rules of the black ship, those who escaped would be regarded as traitors and would be chased down by the black ship. But the former captain had never treated them like this. The former captain let them leave if they wanted to. Now, the black ship didn't carry any of the old traditions, just their name. Chapter 3649, Studying. The evil god had become the captain, but he didn't care about the members of the black ship departing. Finally, there were only two people left in the black ship. One was the former captain of the black ship, and the other was Shira. Shira opened the door of the cabin, her gaze falling on the evil god, who was sitting at the stern. She walked over to him with a smile on her face. She wrapped her pale, slender arms around the evil god's neck. "I have brought you a gift from the other shore. Let me have a look," said the evil god. Shira began to take out the other shore token, which was in the form of an exquisite pot. This was a good other shore token, but it wasn't suited to Shira. "What's the use of this other shore token?" the evil god asked. Nobody could figure out the functions of many other shore tokens in a single glance. But those with a rich experience could tell the functions according to the aura. A few other shore tokens of the mysterious type had uniquely powerful abilities, while some other shore tokens of the strengthening type emitted a formidable power. "It is used to store things," Shira replied. It was now the evil god's turn to be surprised. "Is it really just a pot?" the evil god asked, his eyebrows raising. "Yes," said Shira, smiling in amusement. The pot was strictly a spatial other shore token, but it wasn't considered to be powerful. Shira had obtained and kept the pot just to help the Grand Master of Heaven transmit what was within it. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible for her to fuse with this other shore token. "What's in the pot?" the evil god asked again. Shira opened the mouth of the pot, and a pale yellow energy emerged from it. The evil god observed the pale yellow energy, his eyes widening with every second. "The godly way energy," he exclaimed in disbelief. He was sensitive to the godly way energy and could, in a matter of seconds, tell that this pale yellow energy was the godly way energy. "Yes, it's the energy of the godly way that was isolated from the others by the element spirit civilization. It doesn't have a name yet. You can give it one," Shira suggested. "I'm not interested." The evil god's eyes were fixed on the godly way energy that was floating in the air. He took a deep breath, causing the godly way energy to enter his body through his nose. He then pushed Shira away. "I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. Don't disturb me during this time," said the evil god. Shira looked displeased, but she held herself back as she said, "The Grand Master of Heaven also asked me to pass on a message to you." "What is it?" the evil god said impatiently. Neither Shira nor the previous captain was worth a mention, according to the evil god. But the Grand Master of Heaven was still useful to him. After fusing with this godly way, drive the Bering race and the Divine Farmer race out of the source world, Shira said. The evil god's eyes narrowed. "Is that an order or a request?" Shira was silent for a moment. "It is a request." "Okay." Shira turned and left, sighing inwardly as she returned to her cabin. The former captain's calm face appeared on an old board in the cabin. "You should have expected this from the first day, right?" the captain said. Shira shook her head. No, there's no need to lie to yourself. The Grand Master of Heaven, his disciples, you, and me, all of us knew this. The captain looked up at the deck and added, the evil god himself knows it too. It was true. The evil god didn't have any feelings or emotions. He would be patient only when he found something that would be useful to him. In fact, the evil god was not interested in being the captain of the black ship. The reason why he had stayed in the black ship was because of the Grand Master of Heaven. But we need him more. He is almost a perfect man, the captain said. We will try our best to help him and even sacrifice ourselves if need be. The black ship was a force that was supported by the Nihility race in the chaos, and the evil god was their hope. The evil god had become happy when he had obtained the last godly way. The moment Shira left, his figure disappeared in a flash and appeared in a cabin on the black ship. He looked up at the wall, from where a pair of eyes was staring at him. Go on, gaze at me if that's what you like. He sneered, laughing disdainfully. He knew that the former captain was observing him all the time. And then, wisps of godly way energy surged out and began to gather together. The 3,000 godly ways began to merge, one after the other. It was obviously difficult for them to not reject each other and to arrange themselves in a regular, stable manner. But the energy of these godly ways seemed to have souls, coming to life in the hands of the evil god. Every godly way could quickly find a suitable object to fuse with. The evil god had practiced this fusion process a number of times before. Every extra energy was a test to the evil god. When the 3,001st godly way had merged with the others last time, it had brought great difficulty upon the evil god. And now, fusing the last godly way was a new challenge for the evil god. Buzz! A colorful ball of energy floated before him. The 3,001 godly ways formed this energy ball. The energy of all the godly ways clung to each other and connected together, forming a subtle balance that allowed them to float. If any godly way was added to or removed from this, the balance would be broken and the ball would instantly collapse. The evil god observed the ball carefully, trying to find a gap in it. But he had spent a lot of effort to fuse the 3,001 godly ways. How could there be a gap in the ball of the ways blending energy? He thought for a long time. A thought seemed to suddenly occur to him and he pulled out a godly way from the ways blending energy. The evil god had drawn out the 5 elements godly way. As the most extensive and common godly way, the 5 elements godly way was the foundation of the ways blending energy. Once the 5 elements godly way was extracted, the entire ways blending energy would have to be reconstructed. The evil god had incomparable talent in terms of the ways blending energy. He could come to a conclusion and make a judgment only after he observed this ball for a while. He knew he must do that. After he had extracted the 5 elements godly way, the 3,000 godly ways were pushed into disorder, and a strong aura of energy began to spread out. Seeing that the ways blending energy was about to explode, the evil god reached out a hand and began to extract the energy. The godly way energy turned into thin threads and wove together continuously. In the end, the evil god had forcefully covered the aura of the energy. The former captain watched the scene from the wall. He couldn't help but sigh. This kind of talent and method of controlling energy was terrifyingly powerful. The experienced captain was forced to look on in admiration. Once the evil god had stabilized the ways blending energy, he put the 5 elements godly way back again. From its appearance, there was no change in the ways blending energy, but the overall structure had, in fact, undergone a tremendous change. And now, there was a gap in the ball. This gap was left for the energy of the last godly way. Buzz! The evil god once again released the godly way energy and slowly inserted it into the gap. The godly way energy and the ways blending energy were now almost perfectly matched. The evil god had just begun to smile when the ways blending energy suddenly turned into a snow-white ball. The light ball covered the ship with the light in the blink of an eye and began to flash on the surface of the lake. The ball's light was so brilliant that the whole world seemed dark as night before it. Chapter 3650, The Second Insurance. In the north of the Jade Pure Realm, an enormous brown cubic rock stood on the ground. This cubic rock was 99,000 feet long, 99,000 feet wide, and 99,000 feet high. On its surface, an exit opened for every 30 feet in the span of its entire height. Its inside was hollow, giving way to many intricate caves and passages. This place was called the Heavenly Square City, and it was one of the headquarters of the Four Spirits sect. In a room on the upper left part of the Heavenly Square City was a wounded man dressed in cotton clothes. His hands and feet were tightly tied by 4 iron chains, pulling his limbs straight. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A white whip thrashed violently in the air and lashed hard at the man, landing on his already frail body. Clap! As the white whip hit him, it emitted a beaming ray of silver-white light, which was the light of annihilation. The man in cotton clothes was a treacherous being. It was difficult for ordinary punishment methods to damage a treacherous being. However, if they were hit by the light of annihilation, they would feel pain as when ordinary mortals were stabbed by thorns. This was the case for only the resentment level and hatred level treacherous beings. Once the hostility level treacherous beings came into contact with the light of annihilation, they would instantly turn into fine gray ashes. Crack, 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 crack. The man's clothes were torn and stained with blood as he had suffered many beatings for several days. The one who smacked the whip was a human woman. With each hit, she reprimanded the man solemnly. Do you understand the gravity of your crime, Alphonse? Clap. Do you understand the gravity of your crime, Alphonse? Clap. Do you understand the gravity of your crime, Alphonse? The man's name was Alphonse Shen. He was the chief of the Joy House, which was affiliated to the human spirit sect. The woman, on the other hand, was a subordinate of the Joy House. Despite the stern expression on her face, she enjoyed no pleasure from the abuse. Her eyes revealed the pity she felt. The Joy House was responsible for guarding the treasure bottle platform to protect the godly way energy. Things had been fine in the past chaotic eras. Unfortunately, the godly way energy was stolen by the Nihility race some days ago. As the chief of the Joy House, Alphonse had to take responsibility for an unforgivable mistake. Clap. The woman had whipped him day and night. She feared that if she continued to hit him with the light of annihilation, he might get beaten to death. Without saying a word, Alphonse silently endured the torment. A voice suddenly spoke from outside the room. General Alphonse, how have you been doing these days? The voice asked with a hint of mockery. When the woman heard the voice, she frowned and whipped more forcefully. If she was seen with favoritism to the chief, he would only receive greater blame and suffering. A person came into the room and motioned her to stop beating. She then paused, carefully retracted the whip, and stepped aside. She dared not touch the whip as it contained the tremendous light of annihilation. The visitor was a middle-aged man from the 10 Directions house. It was General Johnny. Alphonse was the chief of the Joy House while Johnny was the chief of the Broad House. They were at the same level, however, whether before or after becoming a treacherous being, Alphonse had always remained stronger than Johnny. They regarded each other as rivals. After becoming treacherous beings, Johnny had been promoted to an important position, while Alphonse had been sent to the treasure bottle platform, which was considered deportation. Now Johnny visited him with an obvious intent to laugh at him. Alphonse glanced at Johnny indifferently. Are you going to eliminate my coordinates? He asked. For treacherous beings, they could come back to life repeatedly as long as their coordinates remained. In fact, all the other attacking methods made no difference to the treacherous beings. The woman's continuous whipping would only bring physical pain to Alphonse but would not kill him. Many members of the Joy House had been killed on the treasure bottle platform, but they had all been revived in the blink of an eye. However, removing their coordinates was equivalent to sentencing their end. It meant eternal death for treacherous beings. Johnny laughed and said, General Alphonse, you are known to always set your safety aside. Are you also afraid of death now? When I got awakened by those snakes, I've been ready for this, replied Alphonse. They are badly in need of talents. They won't kill you for the time being. Besides, the Joy House's guardianship at the treasure bottle platform is just the first insurance, and the godly way energy itself is the second insurance. Johnny declared as he stepped forward. What did you do to it? Alphonse squinted his eyes. Johnny turned around. Come and release him, he yelled to the woman. The woman's face lit up. She joyously hurried forward and proceeded to untie the chains that bound her chief. Johnny then pulled something from his sleeve, taking out a mirror. The mirror showed a blurry image. It was vaguely a lake where several black ships floated above the water. What's this? Alphonse asked. He had been guarding the remote treasure bottle platform for many years, so he had core information. The black ship, a force supported by the birds in the source world, Johnny explained. Is the godly way energy in their hands? Alphonse asked. Johnny nodded and said, there is a person among them who confuse the godly ways. They must be anxious in creating the perfect ways blending energy. Perfect ways blending energy. Alphonse rolled his eyes and said, how can that be perfect? The four spirit sect could scale the number of energy in the secondary worlds either up or down at their will. If a world builder set the number of energy in a secondary world to be 1000 in total, then the ways blending energy formed by 1000 kinds of energy would be the limit in this world. If the number was 3000 in total, then the ways blending energy formed by 3000 godly ways would be the limit. To the chaos, this is already perfection. Have you forgotten that we are also members of the chaos now? Don't use your past eyes to define things, Johnny said. They both knew it was difficult for them to return to their original vast world. Alphonse glanced at Johnny. If he masters the complete ways blending energy, he might have the ability to change the structure of the chaos. But you don't seem to be worried at all, do you? He asked. Well, once he merges the last godly way, the second insurance will be triggered. We only need to wait and see, Johnny said with complacency. Johnny, Alphonse, and the woman looked closely at the mirror, quietly observing the scene. Because the picture was too blurry, they could only recognize the distorted figures of black ships in the lake. The other details remained unknown to them. A few hours later, the black ship at the center shook violently on the water. It was as if an earthquake had started from beneath the lake, creating huge waves. After that, a sheet of white light had suddenly swallowed the black ship. That power is extraordinary, Johnny commented as he patted on Alphonse's shoulder. He handed him the mirror and left the room. Holding the mirror in his hand, Alphonse watched until the white light dimmed gradually and disappeared. The black ship had been wrecked with its pieces scattered on the surface of the lake. Dark blood started gushing out from its ruins. The ship was a part of the captain's body. Once it had been damaged too seriously, it wouldn't recover quickly. It reflected that a large amount of blood had been shed from the captain. They suspect that I deliberately allowed the Grand Master of Heaven to steal the godly way energy from us, concluded Alphonse. The woman nodded and asked, did he send this mirror to you as a warning? It's not a warning, said Alphonse. It's just a token of his contempt. He wants to tell me that whatever I want to do would just turn out pointless. He crushed the mirror into pieces in his hand. Chapter 3651, Another Observer. There were hundreds of thousands of lakes of different sizes in the Roaring Lake province. The clear sky lake in the middle was the largest. If one were to look down from the sky, it would look like a magnificent gem embedded on the horizon. A bright ball of light suddenly rose from the Roaring Lake province, shocking all the creatures that were watching. They stared at the light ball in the sky, unable to grasp what had happened. A few seconds later, the terrifying shock wave reached them. Along with this shock wave, a water wave that was thousands of meters high, spread out towards them. With the clear sky lake as the center, everything within tens of thousands of miles around was swept up by the wave. It took 4 hours for the lake to finally return to a peaceful state. The surface of the clear sky lake had sunk more than 80,000 feet, leaving only a pool of dirty water behind. The 3 black ships lay askew on this pool, their surfaces cracked and blood flowing out of ship decks from time to time. The sound of blood gurgling and the former captain's pained groan sounded through the mayhem. The black ship had suffered a lot over the years, some ships even having been completely crushed and burnt. But the captain had been well prepared then. The destruction of 1 or 2 black ships was like cutting off an arm or a leg. Since the captain's cultivation base was at the Eternal Realm, it wasn't as big a problem. The black ships in the Roaring Lake province were his only remaining body parts. These several black ships were seriously damaged, and the black ship carrying the evil god was smashed to pieces. This was a huge blow to the captain. Shira and the evil god were on the same ship when the explosions occurred. Fortunately, the captain had sensed that something was wrong and extracted Shira from the cabin in time. Even so, Shira had been sent smashing into the side of the black ship, thanks to the shock wave. Her body had become embedded in the deck, and many parts of her body were torn open. Crack, crack, crack. When Shira woke up, she could hear the sound of the black ships being reconstructed. The captain was trying his best to repair the black ships. If someone were to attack him now, the captain wouldn't even have the strength to escape. Captain, Shira called out, what happened? The Battle of the Pear Hill had ended just a while ago. The source world should logically have experienced a period of peace after the battle. Neither the Pear Hill nor the Bering race could start another war, given how the scale of that war could affect them. Shira had just come to a conclusion when the captain said, it's the ways blending energy. The ways blending energy? How is it even possible? Shira exclaimed in disbelief. The evil god wouldn't use too much energy if he were to integrate the godly ways. The ways blending energy was unstable and its power was extraordinary, but it was impossible for it to cause such a huge damage. I saw it with my own eyes, the captain said affirmatively. Then the evil god. Shira's voice trembled. I don't know. The white light ball had devoured the body of the evil god when it had exploded. The captain hadn't gotten a chance to save the evil god, and he even hadn't been able to protect himself. Shira struggled to get to her feet before she took a few steps on the lake, her spiritual sense spreading out quickly. The lake had shrunk considerably, making it easy for Shira's spiritual sense to cover it. She couldn't find any trace of the evil god within the range of her spiritual sense. Has he disappeared? Shira muttered. That energy was so powerful that it might have caused him to evaporate, the captain said. It was very easy to destroy a person with such terrifying energy. Now that they couldn't find the evil god, it was highly possible that he had evaporated and that there was nothing left of him. He wouldn't die like this, Shira said excitedly. The captain hesitated for a while before he said, let's stay here and wait. The Nihility race had invested a lot in the evil god. If the evil god died like this, it would be a great loss to the Nihility race. Shira continued to float in the air and was about to expand her range when she suddenly sensed a force coming from up ahead. Her reflexes told her to dodge it, but the force was too powerful. Before she could react, it turned into a big hand and grabbed her. And then, a huge figure appeared in front of her. The evil god, Captain, you're all right, Shira exclaimed, surprised. How could I die in such a lowly manner? The evil god sneered. He raised Shira, placed her on his shoulder, and looked up at the sky. The evil god had an extraordinary sensibility in the source world. He could sense that there was something unusual in the sky above the roaring lake province. Two looming channels floated up there, some people peeping down through them. What's in the sky? Shira asked. Some creatures are observing me, the evil god answered, frowning. Who? Shira's frown matched the evil god's. I don't know. There seems to be two people. As he spoke, he stretched out a hand upwards, an energy spiral forming at his fist. Whoosh! The energy spiral was like a giant dragon soaring into the sky. It crashed into one of the channels, shattering it to pieces. In the Jade Pure realm, Alphonse squeezed the mirror into pieces and dropped them to the ground. He smirked and turned to leave when the human woman exclaimed, General, look. The scene in the mirror had earlier been blurry. It was even more difficult to see now that the mirror had been shattered thus. Alphonse stretched out a hand and gently touched the fragments of the mirror. The fragments pieced together quickly and became a whole. It was almost as if they had souls. When the mirror was pieced together, the human woman said, that person is not dead. He seems to have discovered the Snake Master's observation channel. What an alert and sharp fellow. He wants to destroy the channel, said Alphonse. Boom! It was then that they saw the evil god's punch coming their way. Nothing happened after this punch. The scene in the mirror was blurred, but it still existed. Did he miss the target? The human woman asked. Alphonse stared at the mirror, lost in thought. He then shook his head and said, it doesn't seem like he failed to hit the channel. He has broken another channel. I think there's another one in addition to the Snake Master's observation channel. Another observation channel? Are those birds also observing him? The human woman asked. That's impossible, said Alphonse, shaking his head. The birds controlled the Nihility race, and the Nihility race controlled the black ship. Now that the evil god and the black ship were a whole, it was easier to observe the evil god. There was no need for the birds to observe him in this way. But who else will observe him apart from us and the birds? The human woman was curious. Was there a third force on the other shore? I don't know yet. Alphonse had barely finished speaking when the evil god's fist swung upwards once again. An energy spiral soared into the sky and finally destroyed the Snake Master's observation channel. In the heavenly square city, the scenes in more than 20 mirrors of various sizes disappeared at the same time. Alphonse's eyes seemed to brighten with an inexplicable joy as he looked at the blank mirror. Chapter 3652, The One Who Rang the Bell. There were 6 great caves lying 5,000 feet below the ground of the Jade Pure Realm's northwest side. Each cave was about 3,000 feet in diameter. Each cave's outer layer was covered with meat in the state of constant shrinking, which made the entire cave look like a beating heart. While the cave was merely 3,000 feet high, the inner space was far larger than this. Each and every cave had its own world. In the lowest cave stood the mysterious yellow tower. At the very bottom of the tower was a man holding a bronze mirror in the shape of 8 diagrams. He was clad in a cyan robe and looked rather wise and remarkable. His aura was impressive. What a sharp insight. The channel has been broken. This person's control over the source world has risen to a new level. Grabbing the bronze mirror, he flew up to the top of the tower. Carved on the surface at the top were densely packed scriptures, all of which were written in Sanskrit. Cutting and sharpening, the immortal-like old man muttered on top of the tower. Each time he chanted, a circle of golden light spread out from his body. The golden light swept right past the scriptures, making them rotate chaotically. An extremely solemn aura was emitted, making the old man's aura grow noble and grand. Anyone who faced the suppression of the golden light couldn't help but fall to their knees. But once the young man was swept by the light, he merely frowned and shouted, "Old man, the channel you've built so painstakingly has been destroyed. You deceived me again. Didn't you tell me that the channel wouldn't ever be discovered?" Then, he threw the bronze mirror right in front of the other man. The latter merely continued muttering, and the golden light continued circling the Sanskrit words. Before such a solemn scene, the young man's behavior seemed rather inappropriate. A few minutes later, the old man's eyes shot open. Buzz. The golden light completely dissipated, and the Sanskrit words stopped circling as well, returning to their original form. Hearing that the channel had been destroyed, the old man showed no sign of discontent on his face. Instead, he smiled and said, "As I expected, the young man wouldn't die under the maximized energy. You know, this maximized energy is..." As he spoke, the young man seemed to find it unbearable and interrupted. "The maximized energy is produced by using a godly way to maximize the way's blending energy. This kind of energy is absolutely uncontrollable. Save for those who don't know, no one would be foolish enough to use the maximized energy. But it is the most suitable to use for killing the evil god." The old man had repeated these words over 100 times recently. Having heard it so many times, the young man could recite each word very clearly. The old man merely smiled helplessly. He didn't blame the younger man at all. It's good that he's not dead. Everything goes according to plan, then. He might now find a way to break the barrier. He was referring to the barrier between the other shore and the chaos. From the moment chaos was built up until this point, no one had ever managed to break that barrier. Both the Grand Master of Heaven and Claire chose to come to the source world by descending. In terms of form and strength, they'd be highly restricted. Can that guy really do it? The young man questioned skeptically. After all, the other shore was by no means a small nor simple world. It had a particularly special means of connection with the chaos. Yes, affirmed the old man. In return, the young man merely curled his lips. It wasn't the first time the old man had talked nonsense, after all. If he was questioned, he'd undoubtedly make up many arguments to reason with the young man. Even if something false slipped out of the old man's mouth, he'd still manage to come up with several remarks. But his master had forcefully comprehended a truth back then, resulting in a crack in the barrier. Perhaps, shattering it completely was a possible option. Just then, a melodious bell suddenly rang from the inside of the mysterious yellow tower. Dong! As it rang, a blazing white sword light rushed up from below. Again, who was tolling the bell? The young man in the cyan robe revealed a strange expression. "Let's go and have a look. It should be a good thing, after all," said the old man with a smile. And so the younger man turned to head into the tower. From where he stood, he had a panoramic view of the mysterious yellow tower. It had a total of 33 floors, all built according to the situation in the stages of other shore. In the very corner of the first floor was a handful of golden equinox sand, the most preliminary other shore token. From there, the stairs spiraled upward, each floor corresponding to a stage of the other shore. From the 6th floor onward, the other shore tokens on each floor were all of the 4th grade and above. There were all sorts of tokens, the strengthening type, the auxiliary type, the mysterious type, and the descending type. Who was ringing the bell? The young man stared at it, narrowing his eyes until he found a figure to the side of the bell. It was a young man in white, carrying a long sword on his back and exuding confidence and arrogance. Dang it, it's him again. The man was rather speechless. "You just knocked the bell last month, didn't you? Can your body really withstand such strain?" Of course, his physical body can withstand it. The old man's voice resounded from above. "Don't underestimate my grand drip technique. It's not inferior to the land of bone tribulation." Grand drip technique. The young man's face twitched for a while, thinking that the old man's naming skill was growing worse and worse by the day. Ringing the bell was no easy task. After cultivating the truth of godly way, one could enter the mysterious yellow tower and take away one other shore token. The weakest other shore token possessed the power of 1 divine megaton. After the warrior made a breakthrough, they could obtain a physical body that carried the other shore token from the higher floor. By then, they could ring the bell once again. The more they cultivated, the more difficult it was to strengthen their bodies, making it harder to ring the bell again. In the previous month, after the young man who carried a sword on his back rang the bell, he took away the other shore token on the 30th floor. Again, reaching the 31st floor from the 30th floor was by no means an easy feat. For some, they could spend thousands of years trying to get there but to no avail. But only a month later, the man managed to ring the bell again. In just a single month, his physical strength had increased drastically. It was completely astonishing. In the ruined graveyard, at the very core of the Divine Bell City lay a huge bronze bell. It was considered the ruined graveyard's most holy treasure, the object all the creatures there relied on. Each warrior who had reached the other shore realm would visit to ring the bell and obtain their token. Dong! A long ringing resounded across the Divine Bell City. The entire place boiled with excitement. The sound of the bell belonged to the 31st floor. Very few people in the ruined graveyard could ever make it. Sitting cross-legged under the huge bell, Rocher had already entered the mysterious yellow tower. According to the rules, he had to choose the most suitable other shore token before the bell chime stopped. Chapter 3653, In the Mysterious Yellow Tower. When Rocher entered the mysterious yellow tower for the first time, the bell only rang for 3 seconds. He kept in mind what Bromley and the other elders had told him. He could grab whatever he liked in the tower, but he could just take one. However, as he only had a few seconds, he didn't have enough time to choose properly. Thus, he just took another shore token randomly. When he realized that the token he got was not suitable for the truth of eternal sword intent, he felt so frustrated. All his efforts were put to waste. The second time he entered the mysterious yellow tower, he could now stay for 6 seconds. The premise still held that he could only choose one of the other shore tokens of his liking. Though he still didn't have that much time, he, fortunately, obtained a suitable one this time. Seeing that he acquired a useful one the second time, he became more determined. He went in again and bet on his luck. As the bell stopped, he was kicked out by a strong force. According to the ruined graveyard, he was actually kicked out by a huge foot. However, not even a single other shore token he obtained in the next 3 attempts he made could be useful to him. So for now, he had to make do with the one he acquired the second time he went in. Over time, Rocher improved the strength of his physical body. This made the bell ring for a longer period. When he already reached the 30th floor of the mysterious yellow tower, the ringing of the bell could now last for 5 minutes. In his next attempt, he directly went to the 31st floor as soon as the bell rang. There he saw several other shore tokens embedded on the walls of the mysterious yellow tower. Occasionally, there would be a dazzling light emitting from them, containing incredible other shore power. Rocher leaned against the wall and walked quickly along the corridor of the 31st floor. He analyzed each of the other shore tokens in there so that he could pick the best one for him. This one's the dead skeleton. It was a mysterious type other shore token and Rocher was unsure of its ability. He thought that he should aim for something that he could readily use. The power of mist. It was a strengthening type other shore token. However, Rocher didn't lack power, so he deemed to choose something that could boost his other attributes. The speed boots. It should be a descending type other shore token that could greatly increase one's speed. In the ruined graveyard, there were specially assigned beings to record, analyze, and evaluate the other shore tokens which were situated on the top floor of the mysterious yellow tower. In particular, their jobs were focused on the new other shore tokens in the tower. On the 31st floor, there were 3 special other shore tokens. They were known as the Whirlwind Wings, the Sacred Battle Sword, and the Manta Stone. Rocher quickly skipped over the ordinary other shore tokens and focused his attention on these as he got to the section where they were located. Let's see. The Manta Stone could greatly enhance the strength of one's body. The Sacred Battle Sword is a masculine type, but the Broadsword is not that suitable for me. Lastly, the Whirlwind Wings should belong to the descending type. They're supposed to greatly improve one's bodily movement skill. Rocher's eyes flashed with excitement as he stared at the last other shore token. It was like the pair of transparent wings was tailor-made for him. He had already seen and understood the Whirlwind Wings before from the ancient books in the ruined graveyard. He was enticed by it the moment he had laid his eyes on the other shore token. The Whirlwind Wings had been on the 31st floor for the longest time. After all, only very few people from the ruined graveyard could reach this floor. However, in recent years, a group of extraordinary talents started appearing in the Divine Land. If the Divine Land was given enough time, the number of their strong warriors would definitely surpass that of the ruined graveyard. Buzz. Rocher knew that the bell would stop ringing soon. The ringing started trembling more violently but its sharpness decreased gradually. It also meant that Rocher needed to hurry in picking the token of his choice. Once the ringing stopped, he would be instantly kicked out of the mysterious yellow tower. Without any hesitation, he reached out his hand and tried to grab the whirlwind wings. However, just when he was about to touch them, the whirlwind wings disappeared and he was only able to touch the wall. His eyes widened as his face was filled with confusion. What happened? But as the sound of bell kept on dissipating, he had not much time to think. He clearly thought that he couldn't leave empty-handed, so he quickly floated towards the sacred battle sword. However, just as what happened with the whirlwind wings, it instantly disappeared just before he grabbed it. Hey, this isn't funny. Buzz, buzz. The ringing of the bell trembled more and more violently. Rocher now only had about 6 seconds before he would be kicked out. Swoosh. Left with no choice, Rocher leapt to the other side of the wall and grabbed the Manta stone. The stone was still one of the strongest other shore tokens on the 31st floor, although it was not suitable for him. Buzz. The bell made its final ring and instantly stopped. Rocher felt a sudden force bump into his body. The next moment, he had already returned to the Divine Bell City. Inside the mysterious yellow tower, the young man in the cyan robe emerged from the dark with a complacent look on his face. In his hands, he was holding the sacred battle sword and the whirlwind wings that disappeared from the walls earlier. What's your motive for helping him? You always look down upon the people from the ruin graveyard, don't you? The old man asked. No, he's not from the ruin graveyard. He's from the divine land, the young man replied. Huh, what's the difference? Those two places have now become one, the old man remarked. The young man paused for a while and said with a faint smile, maybe, I was just rooting for him. He has a high chance to eventually reach the 33rd floor. With the Manta stone, he will reach it faster. Upon saying that, he hung both tokens back to the walls. There were only extremely few people who could even make it to the 31st floor. After Rocher took the Manta stone, the other two tokens would have to wait a long time again before someone could attempt to grab them. A bell-ringing meeting was held every month in the Divine Bell City. Various races and forces attended this meeting. There weren't too many conflicts in the ruin graveyard. Human and non-human races coexisted without any enmity between them. To every race that was residing there, the bell ringing wasn't only a way to enhance their strength. It was also considered as a competition among many races. Originally, 3 non-human races had an absolute advantage in the entire ruin graveyard, while the other weaker races had several limitations. As for the human race, Bromley was the only one they could rely on. But as the Divine Land entered the ruin graveyard, its people accidentally discovered that the place was an excellent venue for cultivation. The truths of godly ways began to spread quickly in the Divine Land. The true gods from various powerful clans and ancestral lands began to cultivate the truths of godly ways. The ruin graveyard formerly had a reputation of being a dangerous place in the chaos, but as they accepted the Divine Land, they eventually began following the rules. In return, the humans from the Divine Land also obtained a considerable amount of cultivation resources. Over recent years, some of the young talents from the Divine Land had reached the other shore realm. And among them, Rocher was considered to be the most outstanding one. He had an extraordinary understanding of the truth of eternal sword intent. In fact, he had mastered it in just a few months after he was sent into the ruin graveyard. The first time he rang the bell of the Divine Bell City, he had successfully obtained a divine megaton of force. After he reached the other shore realm, he had been cultivating in the water drop cave. The grand drip technique there could quickly enhance one's physical strength. As he entered the water drop cave, he was given special treatment. His rate of progress was just several times faster than that of any ordinary warrior. He was considered as a genius and a rising star that appeared in the ruin graveyard after all these years. Chapter 3654, The Water Drop Cave. Sitting cross-legged underneath the enormous golden bell, Rocher slowly opened his eyes. Little by little, he began to take his surroundings in. A huge plaza was built around the bell. It was obvious that this bell held great importance. Dozens of people lined up on its right side. All of them were patiently waiting for their turn. Some of the people standing in line were consummate true gods. They were hoping to enter the mysterious yellow tower by ringing the bell. Others were warriors at the other shore realm who wanted to reach higher floors in the mysterious yellow tower. For these talented individuals of the Divine Land, accidentally falling into the ruin graveyard was actually a great opportunity for them. Long time ago, the numbers of the powerful clans above the Time Sea and the holy beings in the Divine Land were fixed. No matter what, they remained unchangeable. Unless they eliminated other powerful clans above the Time Sea, they would only remain as consummate true gods their entire lives. Ever since the Luo clan took control of the Divine Land, their chances became even slimmer than before. Fortunately, there were truths of godly ways for them to cultivate as well as places to assist them in their cultivation in the ruined graveyard. Therefore, they would have a good chance of reaching the other shore realm. According to the rules, all of the other shore tokens obtained in the mysterious yellow tower should be shown to everyone present. As soon as everyone saw Rocher regain consciousness, their eyes were instantly filled with anticipation and excitement. They couldn't wait to see what other shore token he got. He promptly stood up and stepped aside. "Hey Rocher, what did you get? Was it a good one?" the young man standing beside him asked. He couldn't quite contain his curiosity anymore. This man was none other than Hallett. Hallett was able to obtain another shore token from the 15th floor. Even though he was not as outstanding as Rocher, he was still considered as one of the best. "Did you manage to get the whirlwind wings?" another young man piped as he looked at Rocher over Hallett's shoulder. His name was Augustus. He had a much better luck and talent compared to Hallett's. He was able to acquire another shore token from the 19th floor. Among all of the other shore realm warriors in the Divine Land, he could easily be ranked as one of the top 3. Rocher took out the other shore token he got. "It's the Manta stone," he announced. When everyone saw the gray stone, the whole place was immediately filled with commotion. This stone was actually one of the best other shore tokens that could be obtained from the 31st floor. However, Rocher did not find it suitable. He was hoping to get a different one. "But why the Manta stone?" Hallett asked with unabated curiosity. Even if he didn't manage to get the whirlwind wings or the sacred battle sword, he should not have chosen the Manta stone. It didn't suit him at all. It seemed that Rocher was also puzzled by this. "When I got there, I wanted to take the whirlwind wings. However, they disappeared." "What? They disappeared? Why?" Augustus looked thoroughly baffled as well. I heard that such things have happened before as well," Hallett responded. His childlike face bore an expression of utter incredulity and amazement. "The mysterious yellow tower was guiding you. If it didn't want you to take the whirlwind wings or sacred battle sword, it means that the Manta stone might be the one you need the most. This might be more essential for you than the 2 other shore tokens." All of the people in the ruined graveyard didn't know much about the mysterious yellow tower. All they knew was something peculiar and mystifying would happen in the tower from time to time. The tower guiding some people to take the other shore tokens befitting them was one of those mysterious happenings. "But the function of this stone doesn't match my needs." Rocher frowned at the stone in his hand. When he heard this, Hallett smiled. He said, "Well, you just have to believe that the mysterious yellow tower knows you better than you do. In addition to that, we barely have any ideas about the other shore tokens found on the top floors of the tower. Therefore, we can only speculate about their functions. Perhaps, this stone is not a strengthening type other shore token." It was a bit difficult to confirm the ability of another shore token. It could only be verified after it had been born and used by its owner. Only a few number of people were able to bear the other shore tokens on the 31st floor. Therefore, their initial assessment was merely a speculation. In any case, the guidance of the mysterious yellow tower always has good results. You have to trust its judgment, Augustus added. In the past, Augustus had very little interest in cultivation. But ever since he was able to reach the other shore realm, he had a change of heart. He cultivated hard, which resulted in his extremely fast progress. Rocher was a little disappointed and downcast. But when he heard what they said, he began to feel better. Soon enough, he was extremely excited to try his other shore token out. He was curious to see what kind of magic this Manta stone had. "I sure hope you were right. We'll just have to see for ourselves." Rocher clapped his hands on their shoulders. Dong! The sound echoed throughout the entire place. At that very moment, the gigantic golden bell in the center of the square rang once again. The person who rang the bell was at the 5th stage of the other shore realm. The ringing only lasted for about 30 seconds. As the man opened his eyes, he showed the other shore token he was able to obtain and promptly left from the queue. "Good, it's my turn," Augustus exclaimed excitedly and confidently as he walked towards the big bell. "You seem very confident, Augustus," Rocher said with a smile. With this, Hallett sighed and shook his head. He has gained quite a lot in the water drop cave. He is actually planning to ring the bell 2 times in a row this time. He finished his sentence with a slight smile. 2 times in a row. Unbelievable. Rocher was dumbfounded. He didn't know Augustus was that advanced in his cultivation. The other people waiting in line were filled with shock and envy. They wished they were able to do that as well. There was a simple answer to this: the water drop cave. It was a magical cultivation place. This stone cave was quite massive. It was very cold and wet. Moreover, it branched out to hundreds of other caves located deep inside it. Each one was different in size and shape. All year round, there was water dripping from these caves. It was thoroughly clean and crystal clear. In fact, the droplets contained a unique aura that could greatly speed up the comprehension of the truths of godly ways. This was its primary application. There were numerous places found in the ruin graveyard where one could comprehend the truths of godly ways. Examples of these were the sword graveyard and the gate of nature. Each place corresponded to a specific truth of godly way. However, the water drop cave didn't have the requirement for a particular truth of godly way. Its effect was actually quite ordinary. Therefore, it was not as popular as the ones mentioned before. The only time people considered going to the water drop cave was whenever the sword graveyard, the gate of nature, and others were full. In short, people went here only as a last resort. Later on, the divine land had been merged with the ruin graveyard. Soon after, there were changes that took place in the water drop cave. The once clean and crystal clear water dripping from the caves became turbid. Warriors had to compete for the resources in the ruin graveyard as well. As a recently allied group, it was difficult for the ones from the divine land to gain access to the popular cultivation places. Therefore, the once unpopular water drop cave was their best choice. The first ones to enter and utilize the water drop cave was Rocher, Augustus, Hallett, Estelle, and the other consummate true gods. They thought it was good that they still found a place for themselves in this new territory. One by one they tested the effects of cultivating in this cave. As the turbid water poured onto them, their bodies began to expand in just a short period of time. The ruin graveyard did not have the chaotic source world or land of bone tribulation. Hence, they couldn't find a solution to the problem regarding cultivation of physical strength. This became a problem for Bromley after he reached the other shore realm. It became harder for him to improve his cultivation. His physical body was unable to match the corresponding other shore token. Eventually, it became a burden to him. The change in the water drop cave caused a commotion in the entire ruin graveyard. Everyone wanted to try cultivating there. During that time, fights even broke out in the ruin graveyard. People began challenging each other to determine who would be allowed to occupy positions in the water drop cave. On behalf of the human race, Bromley had reserved a considerable number of seats for the people of the divine land. In just a short period of time, both the human and non-human races in the divine land were able to produce a group of strong warriors. Soon enough, they reached the other shore realm. All of them owed it to the change in the water drop cave. However, the holy beings of the divine land were unable to make much progress. Even though they also cultivated in the water drop cave, their improvement was quite slow. They were quite baffled by it because they were highly talented individuals. It was absolutely unusual that no matter how hard they tried, their cultivation speed was utterly slower than those of the consummate true gods. Aside from Bromley, the holy emperor of the Leng clan, Jeremiah, and Joy, the demi-holy being of the Han clan, were the fastest ones to improve their cultivation. In a short span of time, they had already managed to reach the 14th floor of the mysterious Yellow Tower. Meanwhile, Mike, Zeke, Clark, Holy J, and other holy emperors had only reached the 7th or 8th floor. If they were on the real other shore, they would not even be able to leave the lust world. They had to spend more time working on their physical strength. Chapter 3655, Worry. Along the borders of the ruin graveyard, a flying ship slowly approached. As the space beyond the graveyard twisted, the flying ship drilled in without hesitation. Actually, the whole ruin graveyard was an isolated area from other spaces. The divine land lay at anchor at the entrance of the ruin graveyard. Once the flying ship entered, it came to a complete stop at the top layer of the divine land. From within the divine land, a space channel had been constructed. Seeing that they'd arrived, Mike came out of the channel to welcome the flying ship. A few people exited the flying ship in succession. Rosie and her sister, Lorena, were the last two to come out. After being reincarnated, Rosie was reinstated as a consummate true god again. After she comprehended the truth of godly way, she eagerly explored the sea of truth. Overall, her main goal in breaking through in the sea of truth was to find a way to enter the real other shore. After the divine land entered the ruin graveyard, more warriors relied on the resources of the graveyard which allowed them to reach the other shore realm. Lorena couldn't care less about this, all she missed were her daughter and son. As the journey to the source world would be difficult and dangerous, she wanted to enter the other shore to find them. Lorena had high hopes for this method. After all, only one other shore existed. However, when she asked about the other shore, Bromley said that entering through the ruined graveyard would lead them to the mysterious yellow tower where there were all kinds of other shore tokens. Still, they wouldn't be able to go to stage 33 of the real other shore. This saddened Lorena. If the other shore realm warriors in the ruined graveyard couldn't go to the real other shore, then perhaps the people of the divine land would be able to do so. After Augustus had comprehended the truth of godly way, Lorena instructed him that he must not ring the bell nor enter the mysterious yellow tower. Once he fused with the truth of godly way, she asked him to immediately enter the sea of truth. To her disappointment, this still didn't work. After Augustus activated the truth of godly way, he didn't enter the sea of truth. As per Lorena's instructions, he did not ring the bell nor enter the mysterious yellow tower, but he fell into a desolate area of nothing. Augustus could not move around in the wilderness. Seeing that he had entered the wrong area, he had no choice but to recite the illusion-breaking rune and escape. After she had asked around, Lorena discovered that all the creatures in the ruined graveyard encountered this problem. All of them couldn't activate the truth of godly way to enter the other shore. They would only enter the same desolate area Augustus fell in. Unconvinced, Lorena took her sister, Rosie, to the outside of the ruined graveyard. As a true god, Rose comprehended the truth of godly way and could be of use to her. The rules of the ruined graveyard were very strict. Anyone who entered would have a difficult time leaving. However, Lorena was an exception. Lorena took Rosie to the chaos and instructed her to enter the other shore from there. Their attempt was not successful. Rosie still fell into a desolate area just like Augustus did. The look of frustration across Lorena's face was enough for Mike to understand what had happened. Is it still unable to go to the real other shore? Yes. Lorena nodded in disappointment, her eyes looking down. Mike stepped forward and gave her an embrace. Don't worry too much. Trust in Zen's strength. The ruined graveyard is most probably set up by a supermaster who can even break the rules of the other shore. As far as I know, no one in the source world can do that. If Zen and Yan don't leave, they would be able to cultivate in the mysterious yellow tower. Not only would they be safe from the dangers on the other shore, but they would also cultivate faster. Lorena said as she choked on the sobs she had been holding back. As a member of the source world, she knew well how terrifying the real other shore was. If one was not careful, they would die. On top of that, it was difficult to advance to a higher level and obtain a stronger other shore token. Notably, the ruined graveyard was still a good place for cultivation. Though the competition in the graveyard was fierce, the internal competition among the super forces of the source world was just as intense. The mysterious yellow tower was even more mysterious. Top-grade other shore tokens could be found there and new tokens were added once in a while. These tokens ranged across all stages of the other shore, from stage 1 to stage 33. Whoever arranged this must have been extremely powerful and outstanding. Lorena always had a hard time grasping this. Every time she thought of Zen and Yan, her stomach swirled in regret. Even if the mysterious yellow tower is a good place, it still lacks one thing Zen needs, Mike pointed out. And that is? Asked Lorena. Training. Mike smiled. The ruined graveyard was in a completely closed status. After people reached the other shore realm, they could only spar with each other, resulting in the lack of training. They were not as good as the real other shore realm warriors whose combat strengths were much stronger. Should our son train by risking his life? Lorena was irritated with the idea. Moreover, the capabilities of the tokens from the other shore remain uncertain. It's extremely difficult to obtain a good token there, while every token here is at least at the 4th grade. Even the 9 Li race wouldn't be able to obtain such a token easily during their prosperity period. Hearing Lorena's words, Mike grew silent. He couldn't refute her at this point. Respectfully, he kept his mouth shut and listened intently to Lorena. Though Lorena tended to go in circles, he nodded and patiently listened to her. Rosie also smiled as she understood her sister's worries. However, Rosie still had great confidence in Zen. She knew that he wouldn't suffer any loss in the source world, but she also wondered if he could ever find the 9 Li race. Though the other shore tokens here are easier to obtain, is this really a good thing? Mike broke the silence. The ruined graveyard was strange in many ways. It did not appear dangerous, but it was quite comparable to the source world. From where they were, the one who'd built the ruined graveyard seemed ambitious. However, the person never appeared to them. Bromley and the races of the ruined graveyard had little knowledge on the origin of the ruined graveyard or who it belonged to. This was a big problem to the human beings in the divine land, and they spent years trying to learn all they could. We shouldn't worry. The ruined graveyard favors us, Rosie said. I think the owner of the ruined graveyard bears no malice towards us. I sure hope so, Mike nodded. He was not optimistic about it. In fact, the holy beings in the divine land had the same worry. There had never been free resources in the world. On top of that, after the divine land entered the graveyard, many changes occurred. For example, every time the talents of the human race entered the water drop cave, they obtained more water to drip into their bodies. In the sword graveyard, the human race obtained more light of comprehension for their swordsmanship compared to the others. All of this evoked jealousy of alien races around the graveyard. There was even a time when the alien races joined forces to expel the divine land. However, just as the alien races made their move, a bad omen washed over the ruined graveyard. The graveyard punished the alien races, sending them all to hiding. After that, no race ever dared to make an enemy of the human race again. Chapter 3656, Encounter. The Night View Island was no longer peaceful these days. This was largely because the Gleed demon race had spread the news that the Red demon race were sacrificing members of many races in exchange for the arcana. This had caused so much panic among the weaker races that they had abandoned their own territories and formed alliances. Bacchus took advantage of the situation and extended an olive branch to these races. He won them over by claiming he could protect them. Then he asked them to gather in the land of the Gleed demon race to fight against the Red demon race. Of course, his protection would not come for free. These races had to hand over all the arcana they had. With this strategy, the Gleed demons accumulated a lot of arcana in a short time, all while amassing the other races to their side. This would increase the chances of victory for the Gleed demons should the Red demons launch an attack. Bacchus handed over all the arcana he had plundered to Zen and escorted him and his group to the Ghost Mountain. He wanted 3 holy stones in return. The holy stones were great threats to the treacherous beings. Bacchus had to get them at all costs. Zen agreed to his request. Previously, he had killed 3 stone men in the underground cave and obtained 3 holy stones the size of beans. He gave them to the snake goddess, Fuxi and Eastern Emperor Tai, and their own 3 stones, the size of grains of sand, were given to Bacchus. Soon, daylight broke on the Night View Island. The dawn found Zen and his companions climbing one last mountain with the Gleed demons before arriving at the Ghost Mountain. As they neared the peak, however, they noted something curious. Though there was nothing ahead to block their vision, they couldn't see the Ghost Mountain anywhere in the distance. The empty expanse ahead left Zen and the others stumped. Both Decker and the Gleed demons said that the Ghost Mountain was here, however. They couldn't possibly be mistaken. It was only when they crossed the peak line that a huge black shadow came into view. It was a huge triangular mountain. As Decker had said, the Ghost Mountain was protected by a special space rule. It could only be seen after they crossed the peak line. The Ghost Mountain was largely outside the Night View Island, save for a part of its foot, which was connected to the island. A wide and straight path had been carved along this border. The surface of the whole mountain was covered with irregular lines, which helped it absorb all light. From this distance, the Ghost Mountain seemed to be floating in the dark sky. "We need to go down and exchange the arcana so we can enter the Ghost Mountain," Bacchus pronounced. He spread his wings and glided down the mountain, leading his clansmen. Zen and the others followed him down. Eventually, they came upon 2 black monkey statues flanking the path. Zen's expression changed slightly when he saw the statues. It dawned on him the Ghost Mountain was probably related to the monkey spirits in the 4-spirit sect. The way to enter the Ghost Mountain is very simple. Just feed the arcana to the monkey statues, Bacchus explained. As he said this, he took out his arcana and stuffed them into the mouth of a monkey statue. The statue opened its mouth like a living creature, devouring the arcana bit by bit. Its eyes began to glow with a yellow light. A few moments later, its belly slowly opened and exposed a glazed sheet. Bacchus took the sheet and held it up. "This is the key to entering the Ghost Mountain and to merging with the treacherous beings." "I see. The statues melt the arcana and then press them into thin sheets, correct?" Fuxi asked with a smile. Eastern Emperor Tai had also realized the same thing. The monkey statues weren't too mysterious. They only had a flame rune which melted the arcana in their mouths and turned them into the glazed sheets. Bacchus nodded. "That's correct, but we can't enter the Ghost Mountain with just any glazed sheet. It is only through this mechanism we can get the special runes that we need." He showed the glazed sheet to Zen, Fuxi, the snake goddess and the others. There were indeed indecipherable circles of large and small runes on the surface of the transparent sheet. "Don't think about it too much. Our only goal is to get in." As she spoke, the snake goddess likewise fed the arcana to a monkey statue. Once again, the eyes of the statue flashed, and a thin glazed sheet appeared in its belly. Zen, Fuxi, Eastern Emperor Tai, and the Eternal Realm Hunters followed suit, each exchanging their arcana for a glazed sheet. As the treacherous being Campbell also fed his arcana to the monkey statue, Bacchus pointed out, he can enter the Ghost Mountain but he can't fuse with any treacherous being. Are you sure you want him to go in? He was actually implying that it would be useless for Campbell to enter. But it was impossible for Zen to leave Campbell behind. Of course, he said firmly. Bacchus shrugged his shoulders and didn't press further. After the Gleed demons also got their glazed sheets, Decker, who was at the back of the line, meekly piped up, "May I go in?" A Gleed demon shot him a cold glare. "Why, do you have arcana?" Decker was a member of the Wooden Leaf race. The Gleed demons didn't think too highly of him. Zen had previously allowed Decker to join the team as a guide, but now that they had the Gleed demons to show the way, his function was no longer necessary. Bacchus, in fact, had once directly asked Decker to leave, but he remained only because Zen had insisted that he stay. The Gleed demons had been searching for arcana everywhere the past few days. How dare a member of the Wooden Leaf race have them in his possession and not tell them? As Decker tried to explain, the Gleed demon came forward. "Hand over the arcana you have, then," he demanded. Decker was too weak to disobey. Decker gave Zen a pleading look as he moved to take out the arcana he had accumulated. At this point, Zen intervened, "Decker was the one who led us to you. If it weren't for him, we would never have met. Let him join us." It was a subtle reminder that were it not for Decker, they wouldn't have been able to save the lives of the Gleed demons. The Gleed demons looked at Bacchus, who waved his hand. "Do as he said." The Gleed demons relented and moved aside. Decker shot Zen a grateful look. He quickly took out his arcana and exchanged them for a glazed sheet. After everyone had done this, they continued on to the entrance of the Ghost Mountain. They shortly arrived at a black wall with a stone door at the center of it. "Only one person can enter at a time. Just follow my lead." As he spoke, Bacchus pressed the glazed sheet against the stone door. As the stone door creaked, he disappeared from the spot. Fuxi, the snake goddess and the others followed suit. Zen took out his glazed sheet. He was about to enter the stone door when he suddenly felt an unusual aura. He paused. He turned around and saw another group of creatures reach the peak in the distance. They were the Red Demon race and the Grand Mighty race. The two races had long been at odds with each other, but here they were, miraculously working together. The reason for this newfound alliance, of course, was not that they had reconciled, but that they had no other choice, if they were to defeat a common enemy. Tate bowed and spoke respectfully to the eyeball floating in the light ball. "Master Eye Spirit, this is Ghost Mountain." "I see it," the Eye Spirit said calmly. His attention landed on the young man in front of the door. His sharp eyes firmly fixed on Zen. Immediately, Zen felt rooted to the spot, as if suddenly bound by steel chains. Even Decker, Thurston and Sawyer were affected beside him. They felt only a tenth of the force binding Zen, but it already left them barely able to breathe. Chapter 3657, Break Free. A hexagonal pattern appeared in the eyeball. The power transmitted from the eyeball became stronger and stronger as circles of golden light bloomed within the pattern. Decker's face turned red after being pressed this way, his body creaking dangerously. Sawyer and Thurston were in similar situations. If his strength continued to increase, it would crush their bodies. Zen could bear a power 10 times stronger than what Sawyer, Thurston, and Decker could bear. His physical body had been strengthened greatly, and it had far exceeded that of most creatures in the Three Purities stage. He didn't move even under the pressure of such a powerful force. "Master Eye Spirit, I'm going to kill him," Gavin said, seeing that the Eye Spirit had already controlled Zen. But the moment the 6 wings of the Holy Wings armor were unfurled, Zen, who was at the foot of the Ghost Mountain, suddenly shook his body and stretched his hands to his sides. The steel cage that the Eye Spirit had made shattered. Crack! The hexagonal pattern in the Eye Spirit's eyeball also dissipated. Zen then turned to the people around him and ordered, "You go in first." Sawyer, Thurston, and Decker broke free from the huge pressure, panting, their faces red. At Zen's words, Sawyer was the first to put the glazed sheet on the stone door. The door spun quickly and pushed him into the Ghost Mountain. Thurston and Decker followed close behind. Zen glared at the Eye Spirit, and then put the glazed sheet on the stone door. And as the door revolved, he disappeared from before the door. "He runs so fast," Claire said, smiling. "There is no other way out in the Ghost Mountain. He can't escape," the Eye Spirit said calmly. "Moreover, the power of my eyeball that I just used has reached its limit." You can force him to stay using your. Gavin cut in. The ice spirit cast a cold glance at Gavin and said, I don't need your advice on what kind of theurgy I use. Gavin immediately shut up, noticing the displeasure in the ice spirit. Red demons, lead the way. The ice spirit ordered again. How dare Tate disobey him? He then led the members of his race to walk down the mountain and they finally arrived in front of the monkey statues. Master Ice Spirit, I'll help you exchange for the thing you need to enter the ghost mountain, said Tate, his tone friendly. No need. The ice spirit walked forward and a glazed sheet appeared in the eyeball. This glazed sheet was also made of the arcanum. He stuffed it into the mouth of the monkey statue and stepped back. The statue chewed it for a while. He then got another glazed sheet that he'd used to enter the ghost mountain. Looks like you don't lack arcanum, said Murdoch, the leader of the Grand Mighty race. As the leader of the element spirit civilization, Master Ice Spirit doesn't lack in these things, Tate said. Cut the garbage. Go ahead, enter the ghost mountain, Claire said, throwing them a disapproving glance. Do we need to enter the ghost mountain too? Murdoch exclaimed, pretending to be surprised. We've been to the ghost mountain just a while ago. We don't need to go there again, do we? Tate said nervously, unable to refuse outright. The aboriginals of the Night View Island weren't stupid. The element spirit civilization was much more powerful than other races. The only value that the Red Demon race and the Grand Mighty race held was to provide arcana for the element spirit civilization. But now they had lost all value now that the element spirit civilization didn't need their arcana. They were nobodies now. It must have been significant purpose if the element spirit civilization had deigned to come. Now, there was basically no possibility that these nobodies would survive. Tate and Murdoch didn't want to let the members of their races get involved in this trouble. Get in. Claire's voice became colder, a ray of red light flashing on her fingertip and the temperature quickly rising. Tate and Murdoch looked at each other, finding helplessness in the other's eyes. They could only lead the members of their races to exchange for the glazed sheets and enter the ghost mountain. Once the snake goddess and the other warriors had entered the ghost mountain, they found that Zen and the rest hadn't entered yet. So they waited at the entrance, not budging from their spot. The interior of the ghost mountain was pretty simple. After entering through the stone door, they found an open space just a few feet from the door. It was pitch dark. What are Zen and the others doing? Why haven't they come in yet? Eastern Emperor Tai was confused. After all, they were able to pass through the stone door in the blink of an eye. After a while, they saw Decker, Thurston, and Sawyer passing through the stone door one after the other, panic-ridden large on their faces. What happened? The snake goddess asked. A big eye, Decker said fearfully. Big Eye, Eastern Emperor Tai and the others were confused. The door turned again, and Zen came in. It's the Ice Spirit, they have come. Everyone's expressions shifted at Zen's words. They had known that the element spirit civilization would enter the Night View Island, but they hadn't expected the Ice Spirit to come in person. Being blocked in the Ghost Mountain by the Ice Spirit meant that they would have no way to escape. Is there any other exit in the Ghost Mountain? King Yayan asked. It wanted to escape as soon as possible. Bacchus's face darkened as he heard the conversation and understood that a strong enemy was coming for them. He shook his head and said, yes. There is an identical stone door at the back of the Ghost Mountain. Where does the stone door lead to? King Yayan squeaked, hope glimmering in its eyes. It leads to the void, and all the creatures that enter the void will disappear, answered Bacchus. King Yayan was surprised into speechlessness. It knew that the void was filled with void dust and that the creatures that approached the void dust would be devoured. How strong is the Ice Spirit you just mentioned? Bacchus asked. According to Bacchus, Zen and his group were very powerful. Even without the holy stones, their combat strength was still terrifying. He is powerful enough to dominate the entire Three Purities stage, said Zen. This answer silenced Bacchus. All these people from the outside were supernormal. Let's look for the human beings in the Ghost Mountain, Zen said. This is probably the only way. Their journey to the Ghost Mountain had two goals. On the one hand, they intended to fuse with the treacherous beings as treacherous beings could greatly increase their strength. On the other hand, they planned to search for the primeval Lord of Heaven and the other human beings. Time was pressing in on them now that the Ice Spirit was hot on their heels. Merging with the treacherous beings might have to be postponed. I'll take you there, Bacchus said, turned around, and walked to the front, leading the way for the gleed demons, Zen and his companions. The area before them began to close up after they had passed through this open space. The surroundings were pitch black, but everyone could still clearly see that there were many treacherous beings floating on both sides of the road. These treacherous beings varied in shapes, but were very small. The biggest treacherous being was only half as tall as a person, and the smallest was the size of a palm. The aura they emitted was neither strong nor aggressive. All of them were of the friendly type. As Zen and the others passed by, they sensed the existence of the arcana and surrounded them. Chapter 3658, Deduction. King Yayan, Eastern Emperor Tai and the others remained on the alert. They thought even the weaker treacherous beings couldn't be taken lightly. The Gleed demons, however, were used to them. Even Campbell, an awakened treacherous being, couldn't resist the temptation of the arcana. How much more these unintelligent, friendly ones? More and more treacherous beings of grotesque shapes gathered around the group, almost completely blocking their way. Drive them away, Bacchus ordered. The Gleed demons swung their blades and cut through the treacherous beings easily. The weaker ones were sliced into pieces. The friendly type ones dodged and scampered in various directions. Although they couldn't die, the creatures still instinctively evaded danger. After clearing the way, the group continued onward. The Ghost Mountain was already massive from the outside, almost as large as half of the Night View Island. Its inner space was even more spacious. Up ahead, a row of square prison cells came into view. Beside the cells were stone tablets engraved with figures of different creatures. What are those creatures? The snake goddess asked. They are also treacherous beings, Bacchus explained. But unlike those outside, the treacherous beings here can be fused. You can enter the cells after imprinting the glazed sheets on the stone tablets. Decker at the end of the line piped up, the thorny treacherous beings our wooden leaf race have fused with her over there. He pointed to a cell not far away. There was a pattern of treacherous being with poisonous spines on the stone tablet beside the cell. Only the weakest hostility level treacherous beings are kept here, a Gleed demon pointed out disdainfully. Of course the wooden leaf race would choose such low-level treacherous beings. The Gleed demons scoffed at such weaklings. The gap in strength between the treacherous beings they preferred were quite large. Some top hostility level treacherous beings were as strong as the resentment level ones. Among these were the wolf owls that the Gleed demons fused with. They were the strongest among the hostility level treacherous beings. Now we go to the far right, Bacchus pointed out. Everyone followed behind Bacchus and entered the rightmost passageway. After they entered, another row of square prison cells came into view. Hostility level treacherous beings were kept in these cells as well. Now we go to the passageway at the far left, said Bacchus. The layout of the Ghost Mountain was obviously carefully designed. Treacherous beings were kept in rows upon rows of cells, and the passageway leading to the depths of the Ghost Mountain zigzagged from left to right. Knowing the element spirit civilization led by the Eye Spirit was very likely to chase after them, the group sped along the zigzag passageway. There are about 100 prison cells in each row, where about 100 kinds of hostility-level treacherous beings are kept. We have passed 7 rows along the way, so 700 kinds of treacherous beings, too. Surprise was written all over Eastern Emperor Tai's face. He never imagined there were so many kinds of treacherous beings in the Ghost Mountain. Bacchus smiled. There are a total of 600 rows. At the 300th row, there are 2 bypasses, which lead to the left and right regions of the Ghost Mountain. So there are tens of thousands of different kinds of treacherous beings in the Ghost Mountain. Fuxi asked in surprise. We've calculated that there are 110,000 kinds of hostility-level treacherous beings on this floor alone, answered Bacchus. Everyone was stunned at the number. King Yayan turned its head and glanced at Decker. There were so many kinds of treacherous beings, yet the wooden leaf race only chose those on the first row. How pathetic. Noticing the gaze of King Yayan, Decker could only smile helplessly. Given the lack of strength of the wooden leaf race, they could only choose the weakest treacherous beings. Why are there so many? The snake goddess asked, genuinely puzzled. The creatures in the chaos could not become treacherous beings, after all. All the treacherous beings came from outside the chaos. So how could there be so many of them in the Ghost Mountain? Someone must have captured about 100,000 kinds of creatures in the abstruse energy world and placed them here, Fuxi deduced. And they were all killed and transformed into treacherous beings. Zen trailed off. He also didn't know the reason. Why, indeed, to facilitate the fusion of creatures on the Night View Island with treacherous beings. It didn't make any sense. Perhaps the creatures captured from the abstruse energy world weren't originally meant to become treacherous beings, the snake goddess mused aloud. So what happened? Bacchus asked. Even those from the Night View Island didn't know much about the Ghost Mountain. Over the years, they had just taken it for granted, not thinking deeply about how it came into being. Perhaps there was an extinction-triggering calamity in the abstruse energy world, and some people hid in the chaos to avoid it. At the same time, they brought the creatures from the abstruse energy world and built this mountain to hold them. Perhaps an accident caused all the creatures to die, so the ghost mountain became what it is today, the snake goddess said. It's possible, Eastern Emperor Tai said, nodding. Zen agreed. That theory is probably close to the truth, he said. It was very likely that there were no original intentions to turn creatures into treacherous beings. After all, they were all living creatures before they were brought here. It took the group more than 6 hours to reach the last row at the bottom of the ghost mountain. Although they moved fast, the zigzag passageway impeded their speed, somewhat. There were also 100 prison cells in this last row. Zen finally spotted the tortoises the red demon race had fused with and the wolf owls the gleed demon race had fused with. At the end of the row of cells, there was a stairway paved with black stones. The steps were several thousand feet high, leading up to the second floor of the ghost mountain. When they reached the second floor, more prison cells came into view. However, these cells were larger. The prison bars were quite thick, and through them, they could see the huge resentment-level treacherous beings. There was a giant elephant in the nearest cell. Its attention was drawn by the arrival of Zen and his group. Its long trunk stretched out from the space between the bars and slowly swept toward them. It looked friendly and kind. Friendly-type treacherous beings were not known to be aggressive, so Fuxi reached out his hand to touch the elephant's trunk. But just as he did, the elephant suddenly emitted a disgusting aura. The auras released by friendly-type treacherous beings were not strong, and could even be negligible. But the killing-type and attaching-type treacherous beings emanated extremely disgusting auras. Fuxi reacted quickly. As soon as he felt the aura, he immediately jumped tens of feet back. Zen and the others likewise quickly distanced themselves from the cell where the giant elephant was imprisoned. The elephant continued to try to reach Fuxi with its trunk. But it was a moment too late. It failed to grab him. Howl! The enraged elephant roared in its cell. Didn't you say the treacherous beings in the ghost mountain were all friendly type? Pearson asked gravely. Chapter 3659, Out of Contact. It seems this giant elephant's obsession was triggered by humans. Bacchus remarked as he stared at the giant elephant in the cell. The erstwhile gentle giant had transformed completely into a killing machine, raging at the prison bars wildly. Fortunately, the prison was made of a special material. The thick bars remained steadfast even after relentlessly being struck by the massive creature. By us? What do you mean? The snake goddess asked. It's possible that humans killed the giant elephant, but it had forgotten this, so it wasn't beset with hatred just a while ago. It appears it has been awakened upon seeing you, turning it into a killing type instantly, said Bacchus. Humans killed it, the snake goddess thought for a moment and then shook her head. The ghost mountain must have come into being much earlier than the human race, unless. The snake goddess tilted her head to look at Campbell. There were almost no differences between a human being and a human spirit. It was likely that the giant elephant's obsession was triggered by human spirits. Now I'm wondering if all the resentment-level treacherous beings are like this, Fuxi said worriedly. He had come to the ghost mountain because he had wanted to fuse with a powerful treacherous being. But if all the treacherous beings wanted to kill humans, then that would be impossible. This obviously also weighed heavily on everyone's mind. We can test it. I'm not a human. Let me try touching them, Pearson offered. Good idea, Zen said with a nod. But the snake goddess suddenly whipped around. It's not the right time, though. Zen followed her gaze and saw about 6 small eyeballs floating up to the entrance of the second floor. As soon as they spotted Zen and the others, they started speeding toward them. Right, hold that thought, Zen said. Run, Thurston shouted. No one needed to be told twice. The group began to run. The second floor of the ghost mountain was quite spacious. The first floor was at the bottom of the ghost mountain, and it was larger than the second floor. More than 100,000 kinds of treacherous beings were imprisoned on the first floor, and there were over 100 of each kind. On the second floor, there were only a few thousand resentment-level treacherous beings. A few thousand huge prison cells were distributed equidistantly on the second floor, and the passageways separated by the prisons extended in all directions. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Everyone knew the strength of the element spirit civilization, so no one dared face the eyeballs head-on. As they ran, they constantly changed directions, trying to lose the flying eyeballs. However, the small eyeballs were not only very flexible but also extremely fast. They moved as fast as Zen and the others, and there seemed to be no way they could outrun them. Soldiers, swallow those eyeballs. Bacchus ordered the gleed demon race. The element spirit civilization had already drawn the red demon race and the grand mighty race over to their side. The Gleed demon race was thus on the same boat with these humans, so they, too, needed to escape this. The Gleed demons stopped sprinting. They flapped their wings in the opposite direction. Their speed quickly dropped before they sped straight toward the eyeballs. They pecked the eyeballs fiercely with their beaks before swallowing them whole. Did they do it? Squeak. King Yayan was too apprehensive to look back. Those eyeballs used for detecting shouldn't be that difficult to deal with. But before Bacchus could finish, the necks of the Gleed demons who had swallowed the eyeballs suddenly twisted, their bodies contorting out of shape. Puff, puff, puff. Blood spurted from the broken necks of the Gleed demons. The eyeballs sped back out. Seeing this, Bacchus was so outraged that he couldn't speak. He had personally chosen those soldiers because they were the elites of his race, but they were killed so easily. When Fuxi and the others saw what the eyeballs were capable of, their faces darkened. It was never a good thing to be targeted by the eye spirit, and it seemed these small eyeballs were just as ruthless. Zen watched as the eyeballs sped toward them again, trailing after the last person in the team. An idea flashed in his mind then. Everyone, stop. Stop. Why? Eastern Emperor Tai asked in confusion. Just do as I say. Zen barked out. Although everyone was bewildered by it, they still did as Zen asked. The 6 small eyeballs were floating not too far away from them. They stared at the group menacingly. These eyeballs are acting according to the orders of the eye spirit. If you were the eye spirit, what would you do after releasing these eyeballs? Zen asked the snake goddess. Order them to find the target, follow it, and deliver back what they see, the snake goddess replied. Right, Zen nodded, but the eyeballs wouldn't be able to directly relay what they see to the eye spirit. He can only see the necklace with 10 wolf teeth. Hearing this, everyone immediately got into thinking. Spiritual sense couldn't be used on the Night View Island, so it wasn't possible that these eyeballs were being controlled remotely. They were then likely only mechanically executing prior orders of the eye spirit. So these eyeballs could be lured away? Fuxi asked. We can give it a try. Pearson walked straight to the end of the team. As expected, the small eyeballs diverted their full attention on him. Seeing this, Pearson quickly took out a huge grass bull from his spirit beast bag. The grass bull was asleep. Pearson reached out his hand and slapped it on the buttocks. Startled awake, the creature let out a moo and scampered away. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The small eyeballs followed it, quickly leaving the group alone. King Yayan breathed a sigh of relief. Squeak, it's a good thing the spiritual sense can't be used here, then. Danger averted, the group continued walking through the second floor of the Ghost Mountain. Meanwhile, on the first floor, the eye spirit was left suffering because of the ring-shaped pattern of the 10 wolf teeth. This endeavor was causing him intense pain. The problem was that he had released over 100 eyeballs. But when he tried to communicate with them, he found that all of them were out of contact. Over 100 patterns of wolf teeth surfaced continuously, and the eye spirit endured over 100 times of pain. This was causing their side much delay. Can't you communicate with the eyeballs? Claire asked. Pain flashed in the eye spirit's eyes. No, I can't, and the 10-teeth necklace is really punishing me. Claire didn't say anything. She knew that the 10-teeth necklace was the monkey spirit king's obsession, and the eye spirit was unable to put up any resistance. There is only one path through the Ghost Mountain. Let's just go straight to the ghost altar at the deepest part on the second floor. We will definitely be able to find them there, Tate suggested. He knew that Bacchus would be with Zen and the others. With the element spirit civilization now on his side, however, he might be able to kill them all this time. Right, they're probably heading to the ghost altar, Murdoch echoed. Go ahead, lead the way, the eye spirit hissed amid the pain. Chapter 3660, Selection. The passageways in the second floor and the first floor of the Ghost Mountain ran in opposing directions. The ghost altar at the innermost side of the second floor was right above the entrance to the first floor. Because Zen and his group walked in a straight line on the second floor, the actual moving distance was several times shorter than the moving distance on the first floor. Their speed naturally increased greatly. It took them 6 hours to pass through the first floor and only 1 hour through the second floor. They passed through an area full of prisons which led to a high black wall. On the center of the black wall was a red arch covered with golden copper nails. Here we are. Inside the copper gate is the ghost altar, said Bacchus. We can see human beings in the ghost altar. The snake goddess asked. It's possible. I've seen the human great ghost priests 2 times recently, Bacchus replied. A total of 12 great ghost priests took charge of the ghost altar, and the several human great ghost priests were likely to be chosen as one of the 12. Then we are rest assured, Fuxi nodded. Bacchus thought for a moment. But there are also exceptions. There have been several times that no human beings have appeared, he continued. There were about 60 great ghost priests in the Ghost Mountain, and 4 of them came from the human race. The probability of choosing human beings from the 60 great ghost priests was 1/15. Zen interrupted, the probability of being selected as a great ghost priest is low, right? Very. It's lucky if we succeed after hundreds of attempts. We have participated in the event so many times, but we still haven't figured out the rules. It seems that being chosen is completely determined by the preference of the 12 great ghost priests and the hatred-level treacherous beings, said Bacchus. Then that's no problem. Since it's difficult to merge with a hatred-level treacherous being, let's try a few more times before the human great ghost priests get a chance to be chosen, Zen encouraged. He said while he walked forward. He stepped towards the red arch, stretched out his hands, and pushed the gate inward. Clatter. The gate opened noisily as pitch-black darkness revealed from the inside. The group went in and saw that the ground was painted with leaf-shaped glowing lines. The lines were dim, making them only slightly visible. However, when Zen leaned forward to touch the glowing lines, a ray of bright light transmitted along all the lines drawn on the ground. It was like a seed of fire that lit up the path it went. The light split into 3 parts which climbed up the surrounding pillars. It then connected to 3 huge radiant pearls, illuminating the entire ghost altar. It was a circular hall with 12 entrances above it. These were the positions of the 12 great ghost priests. The ghost altar was currently closed as the entrances remained empty. In the center of the circular hall stood a pillar that was half a person tall. Above it was a round white stone ball. The stone ball had 3 holes on top appearing to have been specially carved out. How do we open the ghost altar? Zen asked. Stand in the center of the ghost altar and attach the stone ball to the glazed sheet, said Bacchus. You can send someone to do it. Let me do it, Fuxi volunteered as he took a step ahead. Certainly, he wouldn't let go of the opportunity to obtain power. His cultivation had already reached the peak level of the eternal realm and his bloodline could not be changed. If he wanted to make a breakthrough, he could only change the other shore token. There seemed to be many disadvantages of fusing with the treacherous beings. It would even cause the treacherous beings counterattack, but being powerful had always been his goal. Fuxi walked to the center of the circular hall following Bacchus' instruction. He went closer to the pillar and connected the glazed sheet to the stone ball. Buzz. The huge stone ball began to rotate, seeming like the gesture had woken it up. Buzz. The 12 entrances then glowed with blue light as it showed a connection to space channels. A bunch of indefinite figures started to float out from the entrances. They were the great ghost priests. Zen, the snake goddess, and the others looked up excitedly, trying to detect the human beings among the great ghost priests. Among the 39 human heroes, it was enough that only one of them appeared there. They searched eagerly as they looked around, yet to their dismay, they didn't find any human being. All of the great ghost priests with strange-looking faces were from alien races. The great ghost priests glanced back at them without a word, as if they were looking down at all living beings. No human beings. Zen shrugged. It was normal not to see human beings as there was a slim chance of encountering them. They turned to look at Fuxi again, wondering if he could fuse with a hatred-level treacherous being. Whoosh, whoosh. As the stone ball continued to roll, white entities emerged from its 3 holes. The entities quickly dispersed, turning into a huge creature, a white bull with 3 horns. Moo! The white bull let out a roar. An extremely terrifying aura reverberated throughout the circular hall, accompanied by indescribable pressure. This is the hatred-level treacherous being. What appears now is only its avatar, not its real body. Bacchus's eyes were filled with excitement. The hatred-level treacherous being. Everyone gasped as their hearts raced with fear. Fortunately, this bull was of the friendly type and its frightening aura was still weak. Otherwise, bearing its aura would be a problem for everyone. The great ghost priest suddenly began to clamor after the white bull's sound. How could there be human beings here? This can't be. I won't allow a human being to be the great ghost priest. It's not good to provoke these guys. I don't agree. No way. All the great ghost priests from above the circular hall rejected Fuxi with a unified voice. Hearing the complaints of the great ghost priests, Fuxi asked loudly, what's the problem? Why don't you agree? The great ghost priests turned around coldly and disappeared back into the space channels. Everyone, can you tell me the reason? Fuxi insisted, waving his hand helplessly. In the blink of an eye, the great ghost priests had all left. The unknown bull with 3 horns also returned into the stone ball. Fuxi hung his head down, soon retreating from the center of the ghost altar. It's normal to fail to be chosen as the great ghost priest. I've tried many times, but I haven't succeeded even once, comforted Bacchus. I think they have a prejudice against the human race, said Fuxi as his lips curled into a frown. Decker suddenly asked, isn't the process of choosing the great ghost priest simple? Everyone can have a try, right? Bacchus glared at Decker and said, the ghost altar itself is used for the natural process of selection. Of course, it doesn't need to be complicated. Then why don't you let the members of our wooden leaf race have a try? Why did you say that only a creature that has fused with the resentment level treacherous being could get a chance? Decker asked gloomily. A gleed demon beside Decker sneered, if everyone wants to try on the second floor of the Ghost Mountain, won't the status of our three races be easily affected? The Grand Mighty race, the Red Demon race, and the Gleed Demon race had always fiercely competed with each other. However, they cooperated very well in keeping the secret of the second floor of the Ghost Mountain. According to the normal process, the soldiers of the Red Demon race, the Gleed Demon race and the Grand Mighty race stood guard in front of the Ghost Mountain. If members of other races entered the Ghost Mountain, they would be escorted by the members of these three races. Ordinary races could enter the first floor and the second floor. As long as they were able to merge with a hostility-level treacherous being or even a resentment-level treacherous being, they wouldn't be stopped by the three races. However, the races weren't allowed to enter the Ghost Altar. The three races had also declared that to become the Great Ghost Priest, one had to challenge a resentment-level or even a hatred-level treacherous being. If the warriors failed to be careful, they would be killed during the battle. The races of the Night View Island were skeptical of the process, but they didn't dare challenge the three races. Bacchus saw that Decker was displeased. Although luck is a big factor during the selection of the Great Ghost Priest, one's strength also affects the treacherous being's choice. Go ahead and try if you are not convinced, he said as he waved his wings.